Batman is only one man. So what if he finally decided to create a Batman organization, a Batman Inc., if you will? Welcome to the Comicstorian channel, where I take some of your favorite trade paperbacks and single issues and I break them down into digestible bites to help you understand. Then I read them dramatically back to you. All alterations to the panels, text, and images are to prevent copyright problems, and all art is owned by its respective companies. The purpose of this channel is to bring you a synopsis of your favorite comic book storylines so you can see the amazing stuff that is out there, and then eventually start your own collection. And today we're going to be covering a weird little storyline known as Batman Incorporated. You see, during a brief period, Batman was actually thought to be dead, and during that period, Nightwing became Batman. So when Batman eventually came back, he decided that he was going to take the concept of Batman and train others to be Batman. And that is Batman Incorporated. And today we're going to bring you the full story of a series that we did every Sunday right here at Comicstorian. So sit back, relax, and I hope you enjoy. And if you want to know when our next video comes out, make sure you hit that bell and turn on notifications. All right, let's get into it.
Wake up, the voice calls out through a drugged haze. Mr. Unknown, wake up. Mr. Unknown awakens, his head still groggy as he asks who's there. He looks down in shock at his hands, screaming as he realizes they've dissolved into almost nothing. They are in hell, awaiting the rest of you, the man in the skeleton mask shouts as he steps out of the darkness. The skull smiles as the Lord Deathman picks up the vial of acid. Mr. Unknown tries to reason with him, but the skeleton smashes the vial across his face. A short time later, Mr. Unknown's assistant walks into their secret lair, whistling as he drinks a cup of coffee. He is shocked to see three of Lord Deathman's goons destroying everything as the villain stands over the murdered body of his mentor. Get him! Lord Deathman orders as the young man drops his bag of groceries. The goons launch forward. The assistant is more than he seems, and he ducks under a blow, throwing his coffee into the face of one of them while he lashes out with a kick to the other. He hits the button on the elevator, ducking out of the way of bullets as he rides into safety. No one can run from death forever. Find him! Lord Deathman orders his skeletons. Meanwhile, we have to stop meeting like this, Selina, Batman says as he and Catwoman descend into the lair of Dr. Savannah. But Selina couldn't help herself when she heard that Batman had to break into the armory of one of the world's master criminals. What did poor Dr. Savannah do to you? He invented something I don't want to fall into anyone's hands but mine. They both pause, questioning why all the robots and security measures have already been disabled. They slip in quietly and discover that the two Black Ops soldiers in the back are already trying to break into the vault, when suddenly one screams as he is lifted into the air by an invisible force. Did somebody turn off the gravity? Selina asks as she glances at Batman. Invisible Sentry, another robot. Selina tells him that she'll take the vault as Batman launches himself into the fight, throwing a smoke grenade, allowing the swirling cloud to show him where that robot is, and he throws an electric grenade before hitting it with electric knuckle dusters. Selina makes her way inside of the vault, discovering more robotic rats that she quickly disables, and as Batman defeats the robot outside, she leans over the large diamond that lays in the center of the vault. Huh, shiny. Come to Selina, she purrs as the giant robot mouth comes at her from behind. Later, the Japanese news reports that the billionaire Bruce Wayne has arrived in the country on the arm of a cosmetic heiress. Selina smiles as she watches from the couch. Bruce working out in the corner, commenting that he thought she deserved the best suit since she had to deal with a robot mouse. She smiles as she watches him work out, questioning what happened that made him decide that Batman wasn't enough, that he needed there to be more, that there needed to be a Batman Inc. I caught a glimpse of a bigger picture, Selina. I have work to do in Tokyo tonight. You're free to do whatever you want. He tells her as he completes another set, and he explains that he is here to recruit and train a Japanese Batman. As long as it doesn't involve water, I'm in, she tells him with a smile as she leans over him. That night, the pair swooped through the towering city of Tokyo, where they arrive at a store that houses the secret lair of Mr. Unknown. The lock is broken. Unwelcome visitors? Batman questions as they slip inside, and they find the elevator, and Batman begins to work his way through the security. But as Selina looks through the comic book store, Batman explains that Mr. Unknown is the man that I came here to recruit. I hope he'd appreciate that I'd worked out his secret identity. Downstairs, they discover the carnage that was left by Lord Deathman. As Batman checks the body, Selina reads the notes on Mr. Unknown's cases. Do you hear movement? Batman says as he stops his investigation, and they turn to find a group of skeleton goons armed with swords. At least they're trying to look interesting. It's always nice to see henchmen who put in the effort, Selena says, and the pair move into the group. Working quickly, they lash out with fists and kicks to take the goons out. Batman spins, kicking another, slamming his head into Mr. Unknown's car. But as one of the wounded goons tries to go for his sword, Selena stops him with a boot to his head. Batman comes over, grabbing the man by the neck, pulling him up. You weren't waiting for us, so who are you waiting for? Batman demands as he pulls the goon's mask off. I won't tell you! I can't! Lord Deathman! The goon stammers. Batman growls that he doesn't have the time for this, and he drags the man over to a table saw. Your boss might kill you when he finds you. Me? I'll carve your nose right off of your face! Right here! Batman snarls as he leans the man's face closer to the revving saw. No! It's the kid! The body double! The man finally shouts. The next morning, Jiro's friend drops him off at his girlfriend's apartment, and he orders his friends to be safe and drive around the block a few times. As he climbs the stairs to the apartment, Jiro pulls out a pistol from his pocket. He opens the door, shocked to see his girlfriend surrounded by skeleton goons. Jiro, don't come any closer! He said the carpets are mine! Misaki shouts, and Jiro jumps into the room, raising his pistol, ordering whoever it is in the smoke to step out. Let her go, or I'll shoot! Jiro shouts, and Lord Deathman steps from the smoke, his skeleton face smiling. You'll shoot Lord Deathman. Go ahead! Break your code of honor! Lord Deathman calls to him, and he laughs as he reaches down, grasping Masaki's throat, telling Jiro to make up his mind quickly. Jiro screams in rage, opening fire, the bullets ripping through Lord Deathman, throwing him back out the window as he crashes into the street below. What have you done? He's the only one who knows how to stop it! Masaki shouts, and suddenly the floor collapses beneath her and she disappears into a pool of water. Jiro leaps into the room, kicking at the goons, when suddenly Batman and Catwoman enter in behind him. Somebody save her! He shouts as Selena looks into the pool of water. That's the one thing I said, she grumbles as she dives in, and beneath the surface she is shocked to discover a massive octopus attacking the girl. Jiro and Batman continue to fight the goons until finally Jiro moves to the hatch, but he can't get it open. How did he do this to my apartment? How can all of this water be downstairs? He shouts at Batman. Meanwhile, in the trap, Catwoman continues to struggle with the giant octopus, trying to free Misaki. Batman leaps out of the window, swinging down and planting 2 bombs against the downstairs apartment window. The explosion takes out the glass, sending the water pouring into the streets, with Selena gasping for air as she breaks the surface. Batman shouts for her, and she manages to reach out and grab Misaki from the octopus as it pours out the window. A short time later, the police and the paramedics arrive on the scene, with Jiro standing over Misaki as she yells at him. Why didn't you tell me, Jiro, that your boss at the store was Mr. Nobody? You must have known that this would happen someday, she shouts. He tries to calm her, asking her to keep her voice down, but as the paramedics wheel her away, she shouts to Jiro that she never wants to see him again. Inside of the apartment, Selena sits on the couch glaring at Batman, clearly not happy. I'm drenched, you horrible man. Skin-tight leather with water inside, she pouts. Batman doesn't look at her. He found the apartment's owner stuffed in a fridge. He knows Selena. She didn't come to Tokyo to try out for the Justice League. She gets up with a smile, asking what he knows about Lord Deathman. I fought him years ago in Gotham. He mastered a yoga technique to simulate death. I suspect an upgrade. Suddenly, Jiro enters his apartment, telling Batman that this is all his fault. All of this is because they were trying to get at me, he sighs. Batman begins to put the pieces together, and several of the John Does had been killed recently, pointing to Lord Deathman's next victim, Mr. Unknown. He was killed with nitrohydrochloric acid, which is also known as aqua regia, royal water. Water that points to the next victim in an elemental chain of death. Where are the Poseidon's jewels being exhibited? He asks as he cracks the case, and Jiro nods, explaining that they are in the Maritime Museum. If Deathman is working his way through Japan's hero population to make a name for himself, Aquazon of the Young Super Team is next. Batman turns. He doesn't remember any mention of a sidekick in Mr. Unknown's files, that he was coming here to make Mr. Unknown an offer. Bruce Wayne's Batman Incorporated, right? The thing is, my boss, he turns 56 in a week. It's been a whole lot of years since he did anything but detective work. All the physical stuff, patrols, stakeouts, street fighting, that was all me. Jiro explains. He looks at Batman, wanting to take the offer to join Batman Incorporated. You used a gun. Rule number 1, no one does. Batman says simply as he turns away. He and Selena leave the apartment, heading down the stairs as Jiro tries to argue with him, but the police have begun to enter, and they are shocked to see Batman. You have to let me avenge him! Not even you can stop me, and I'll show you what I can do! Jiro shouts at the Dark Knight. Meanwhile, inside of the hospital, the coroners are shocked to discover that Lord Deathman's gunshots have already seemed to heal. They lean in with a scalpel, but the villain begins to laugh, and he reaches out, grabbing the man's hand, crushing the bones in a single move. You dropped your scalpel, Doctor. Here, let me reunite it with your lungs! Lord Deathman hisses as he pulls the man close. Inside of the hospital, the skeleton goons have arrived, opening fire on the innocent patients and doctors. They arrive at the examining room, finding Lord Deathman standing over the bodies of the victims. I'm back, like I promised. No graves deep enough to hold the mighty Lord Deathman! He laughs as they hand him his clothes and a Tommy gun. They begin to stride out of the hospital with one of the goons coming up to Lord Deathman. Someone alerted the hospital authorities, boss. If you plan on using the detonator, you should do it fast before they evacuate. You placed the first charge on the disabled kids bus like I told you, right? Lord Deathman asks as he presses the button, and outside the explosions rip through the parking lot of the hospital. Lord Deathman quickly runs outside and jumps inside of a souped-up sports car. I read somewhere that violent antisocial crime is almost unheard of in Japan. How about we take them to school? He laughs maniacally. Meanwhile, Batman and Catwoman continue to swoop across the city as she questions why he was so hard on the boy. But Batman believes that if he's right, the kid will take a shot. He shoots a grappling hook, hitching a ride on a news helicopter, knowing that he must move quickly to stop Lord Deathman. Elsewhere in the city, Aquazon continues her speech as she unveils the Atlantis royal jewels. Meanwhile, Zero has found his Mr. Unknown costume and leaves the pistol on the shelf as he begins to put the costume on in front of the mirror. He puts his wide-brimmed hat on and steps to the window in his apartment. Lord Deathman drives his car through an apartment, killing everyone inside, jumping out the far window, with Batman suddenly descending from the air, leaping on top of the speeding car. You sick, twisted monster! He snarls as the car lands on top of a speeding train, and Lord Deathman turns the wheel so that they are moving along the top of it. Let's die together! He laughs maniacally as the car leaps off the speeding train, aiming for the Maritime Museum. Die, die, die! Lord Deathman shouts as he opens fire on Aquazon with his Tommy gun. The gun shatters, sending flying death through the crowd as he tries to kill the hero. But Mr. Unknown swings into the scene, rescuing Aquazon within seconds as the car crashes onto the stage that she was standing on. Stay down! I'll take care of this piece of trash! He shouts, but Lord Deathman pulls himself out of the flaming wreckage, aiming his Tommy gun at Mr. Unknown. He laughs, telling the young man that he has learned how to cheat death. Haven't you heard? Mr. Unknown is dead. He died in his own mess, begging for his worthless fleeting life. The gun! Aquazon shouts as she struggles for a Tommy gun that is lying nearby. Guns are for cowards, not for Mr. Unknown, the hero tells her as he stands, launching his stun darts at the villain as Lord Deathman squeezes the trigger, sending a burst into him. Batman is suddenly there, kicking the gun out of Lord Deathman's hands, knocking him to the ground. Murderer! I know you won't stay dead! Batman snarls as he punches the villain in the stomach, and then he hoists him up by his cape, glaring at him. So for you, a fate worse than death, he growls, throwing the man down into the parking lot where Selina pulls up in an armored truck. She opens up the back and the two of them stuff him into a safe. Later, the news reports that Japan's #1 hero, Mr. Unknown, was killed that afternoon. At their hotel, Bruce and Selina share a drink. Well, that was fun, Bruce, but you know how cats are. Places to go, things to see and do. Selina smiles at him as she pauses, asking him about how he is stretching his shadow across the world. What will you do when Batman's enemies come for Bruce Wayne? But he smiles, telling her that she'll have to see. He remembers that evening, how they faked Mr. Unknown's death, how they recruited Jiro, and how they gave him the oath in candlelight and brought him into Batman's world. He turns, looking out over the Tokyo skyline, and in the darkness of the sky, they see the bat symbol burning bright. Lord Deathman's a guest in the Japanese space program, so I guess that leaves one loose end. Batman says as he smiles at Selina. She nods and tells him that she'll miss her flight if she doesn't hurry, but he reaches down, picking up her suitcase, sloshing the water within, and letting some of it leak out. The crown jewels of Poseidonus are created in pressures below 1,000 atmospheres, and they liquefy. Bruce tells her. No! She pouts with a sigh, and Bruce smiles and grazes his glass. Mr. Unknown is dead. Long live Batman Japan. Elsewhere in the city, Batman Japan throws a punch, knocking the masked and caped gorilla away. The night that Metaltech Scout turned up in Dorset, he was there. He was always there. The soldier looked up, the area destroyed all around him. Crashed planes and dead heroes. Who am I now? When does this wear off? He stutters as he looks at his robotic hands. The soldiers question him, asking what happened. He can still hear it, the Daedalus ring. Why can he still hear it? The night before, the team of British superheroes stepped onto the island with a squadron of Britain's finest soldiers. Mr. Albion stepped to the commanding officer, asking him what the situation is. I need you to confirm his identity. As soon as we know it's Daedalus, you make sure he never leaves this island, the soldier tells him. The officer gestures over his shoulder to the lighthouse, pointing out the destruction that is scattered around. He can't spare any more of his soldiers. Evil geniuses are your department, he tells the superheroes. The heroes step inside, everyone prepared for the worst, or so they think. The darkness shifts around them as if alive, and one suggests retreat, but the others don't listen. In the darkness, someone smiles. The next day, that soldier is placed into a medevac. One of the soldiers asks if he can confirm that it's Daedalus. He killed them, but we got him. We locked him in. He'll never get out, the man shouts. Today, the weapons deal went sour. The crime boss continues to pace back and forth, monologuing to Miguel. Or should I say Cameron of Super Malone? So much for the disguise, crime fighter. He laughs, and the hero grits his teeth, demanding to know where the children are, but the man smiles, aiming his pistol at the hero's knee, telling him not to worry about it as he fires. Screw you, Papa Yaga! Cameron snaps as the pain lashes through his body. But the parrot on Papa Yaga's shoulder begins to speak up. Incoming! It squawks. The bolo whips through the air, wrapping around Papa Yaga's wrist, knocking the pistol away, and the motorcycle growls as El Gucho lands among the goons gathered around, Batman at his side. The two begin to take the thugs out as Papa Yaga runs for his waiting hot air balloon. You have time to consider my offer? Batman asks as they continue their battle, the criminal laughing as he hits a button and the weapons crate opens up all around them, releasing blue scorpions that charge forward. El Gucho grabs his friend, lifting Chimeron to his feet, asking about the missing children. He wouldn't say, but he's not working alone. This is big, Chimeron tells him. The scorpions begin to close in around them, but Batman fires a grappling hook onto the fleeing hot air balloon. As the blue scorpions explode, the three heroes pull themselves onto the balloon with Papa Yaga preparing to fire his cane gun at the heroes as the parrot speaks up again, trying to warn its boss about the blue scorpion on his back. The creature's tail then bites down and Papa Yaga recoils in pain, tumbling out of the balloon. He took the name of his boss with him! Chimeron moans to his friends, but the parrot is still in the balloon, beginning to squawk. Ouroboros, boss! Ouroboros! The next day, Don Santiago Vargas finishes another spectacular horse race. He greets his adoring crowd, signing autographs to any who ask. But as he looks up, he sees Bruce Wayne standing with the beautiful Tristessa. Vargas doesn't seem too happy, commenting that Bruce might have seen Tristessa's name attached to him in the news columns. We were discussing the tango, Bruce tells him, waving off the comment. The woman smiles, offering to show Bruce the Argentinian tango. Santiago won't mind, she says with a mischievous smile, and she begins to drag Bruce away onto the dance floor as Santiago is grabbing his arm. I warn you, Wayne, Tristessa is death on the dance floor, and she never tangos with amateurs. He hisses in anger, but Bruce throws away his arm, stepping out. The two begin to dance, floating around the floor. Santiago glares at them, cracking the champagne glass in his hand in anger. As the dance ends, he storms away. Oh dear, I seem to have upset our host. Bruce laughs as he watches the man, excusing himself to follow Santiago to his villa. Inside, they enter the man's secret lair. Convincing enough? Bruce asks Santiago as they step into the shadows, the man shaking his head. Why are you masquerading as Bruce Wayne anyway? I've met Wayne. You don't fool me, El Gucho tells him. But Bruce removes his shirt, revealing the bat symbol beneath, and shrugs off the question. He could smell the venom under Tristessa's perfume and questions why Santiago would keep one of his enemies so close. That would make Scorpina's 15th attempt to kill me. He answers with a nod, and he looks back at Batman, once again confirming that he won't join Batman Incorporated. El Gucho is his own man, not an employee, Santiago says, pointing out that this happened before, and he asks what would make Bruce Wayne's team any different. Wayne is helping me prepare for the fight of my life, and I have a game plan, Batman tells him. He turns to the cameras, which show Tristessa fleeing the villa. Batman begins to question the case that El Gucho is working on. The 3 missing children. Just poor kids. No one cared about them. You know how it is. El Gucho explains. He tracked the kids to lead him to the weapons deal with Papa Yaga. Gucho doesn't believe that the name Ouroboros rings any bells. El Gucho tells Batman of a book about a manipulative doctor named Daedalus. In the story, he was killed by 3 blind assassins, but the story gets weirder because the book was written by a group of writers. Suddenly, they're interrupted by a police alarm at the villa where Daedalus is killed by the assassins in the book. "You can leave this to me, Batman," Guccio tells the Dark Knight, but Batman shakes his head. 3 kids, 3 assassins, 3 letters. You know I can't resist a good mystery." At the villa, the police inspector informs them that they've already lost the officers and that the place has been booby-trapped. Batman and Guccio decide to head inside, moving past the downed police officers that originally went in. Suddenly, the doors slam behind them, and the voice calls out, "Gentlemen, at last!" from the dark. The 2 heroes continue to walk forward as the voice squawks out of a radio, monologuing about death traps. In the basement, the 2 find a table with taser gauntlets, and the voice tells them to put the gauntlets on and fight. Only one of them is walking out. Guccio reaches down, finding the calling card of El Sombrero. He's shocked, believing the man had died in Arkham Asylum. Batman calls out to El Guccio, drawing his attention to the screen behind them. The image shows El Sombrero sitting in a wheelchair with Scorpina by his side. Behind them, the 3 children are locked in a chamber that is quickly filling up with water. "Put on the gauntlets, gentlemen, and fight for our pleasure. Simply stop your opponent's heart to stop the clock and save the lives of the 3 blind mice drowning in sewage. Batman and El Guccio. Who lives? Who dies?" Every day, the doctors come to the island to ask the old man the same questions. His answers never change, and he tells them that they are too late to stop him, that he is reeling in his prey, and that everything is under his control. He tells them about his plan, about Ouroboros. Batwoman holds up a necklace of a snake eating its own tail. "Your so-called friends told me exactly where to find you, Johnny Valentine. You shouldn't have dropped this when you killed those 3 Marines," she snaps at the thug. He turns, spraying her with a green liquid, and he turns to run. She gives chase, but is shocked to discover that she is in Kane's Colossal Carnival, the carnival founded by the first Batwoman, the woman that ran the carnival before working for the intelligence agency Spiral. Back with El Sombrero's death trap, though, the villain asks Guccio if the lives of 3 poor children who had no future are worth more than the life of El Guccio. "We can't fight to the death. You think El Sombrero will release the children if we did?" Guccio asks Batman as the Dark Knight puts on his taser gauntlet. Batman nods, explaining that the villain has to be close by. "We have to play for time until I can hack the locks and the doors to the boiler room." Scorpina holds up a blue scorpion with a smile, questioning if Batman knew that El Guccio was responsible for the death of the first woman that he ever loved. "What does she mean by that, El Guccio?" Batman demands, but Guccio turns to him, powering up his own gauntlets while he explains that he has no idea. "A young man named Agent 33 delivered Miss Kane to her rendezvous with the Reaper. Agent 33, who became El Guccio." Scorpina explains, and the 2 begin to fight, with Batman demanding answers. Guccio reveals that he loved Kathy Kane, and not a day goes by that he doesn't regret what happened. Batman turns, uppercutting Guccio in the stomach, and electricity crackles in the room as they continue to fight. He dodges another attack, cracking him in the jaw. Meanwhile, at the carnival, Batwoman dodges as Johnny turns and shoots at her. "Anything on the sniper killings?" she asks her handler as she continues to work, and the man at the command center nods, telling her that the bullet wounds match the Braille letters. "Oscar, Roger, Bravo," he tells her. She nods as she shoots her grappling hook, swinging into the air, telling him to stay with the investigation while she has another chat with Johnny. As he continues to run, Johnny pulls out his phone, demanding backup. "Get to the ghost train, Johnny V," the voice tells him. Batwoman swings in, kicking Johnny hard in the back, and as he tumbles, he manages to pull himself up, stumbling to the ghost train ride. Batwoman jumps on the next car, and as she heads into the tunnel, she is shocked to see Kathy Kane in front of her. "Sir, I don't believe in ghosts, but Kathy Kane died years ago, right?" she asks her handler. Kathy steps forward, telling Batwoman that Johnny is playing the winning team now, and blowing powder in her face. "Enough with the maze powder!" Batwoman shouts, and Kathy throws a kick, but Batwoman easily blocks it. "I know who you are, but you should know. Batwoman is taken!" she shouts as she delivers her own kick to Kathy's face. Her handler nods as he continues to work through the intel on Ouroboros, discovering that it is a reference to an advanced metamaterials. "Classified Nazi scientists. Classified. You ever hear of a Brit super spy called the Hood? You good?" "Colonel, I'm good," Batwoman says as she knocks Kathy out of the haunted ride. She drags the woman outside, ripping off her wig, throwing her to the ground. "You shut up or I'll knock you out," she shouts to the short-haired blonde woman. Run facial recognition, I've seen this girl before, Batwoman says to the Colonel, and the Colonel nods as he finds what they're looking for. Ouroboros is a codename for some sort of super weapon. I have reason to suspect that there is something on an island in the South Atlantic that could blow a hole in the world. The question is, how fast can we get Batwoman on the site? The Colonel asks, and Batwoman nods as she raises her fist to the woman. I know I can rely on you to work that out, Colonel. Right now, I'm reopening the Kathy Kane murder case. Meanwhile, back at the death trap, Gucho punches Batman in the jaw, and on the other side of the screen, Sombrero laughs as the two men have no idea that the ordeal has already begun, and Batman throws another punch. Gucho suddenly realizes that Batman has short-circuited his gauntlets, and he tries to explain about Kathy, but Batman stops him, stating that they will discuss it all later. Sombrero! I've infiltrated and disabled your security network with a device that is barely as sophisticated as a cell phone. You wasted your budget, and I'm coming to get you. Batman growls at the villain as he drops a smoke pellet into the room, disappearing into the shadows. On the other side, Scorpina leans over, telling Sombrero that there was once a time where they might have escaped together. Give my regards to the maestro, you venomous bitch. In 24 hours, the world is at war. Sombrero wheezes at her. But as the woman leaves, Sombrero watches the screen before him. You shouldn't have brought Kathy Kane into this. Kathy Kane made it personal. Batman growls, and Sombrero's eyes widen as the Dark Knight appears behind him, the taser gauntlets crackling with energy. Outside, the police and the paramedics continue to clean up the scene, and inside, Gucho glares at the slumping Sombrero. Who are you working for? He shouts as he hits the man again, but the villain laughs, telling the pair that he has worked for the greatest of them all. And finally, Batman pulls the man away. Leave him to the law. The children are safe. Scorpina's leading the dance, and we need to follow her. It was a long time ago that Herr Netz first discovered Ouroboros. He told his findings to Adolf Hitler, informing the Fuhrer that he who controlled the treasure would become the master of the world. Hitler sent the man to England, hoping to discover the weapon's secrets, and it was there that Netz was captured by the British, who had no problems working with the man that could provide them the ultimate weapon. Of course, eventually Netz would exploit and betray his new masters. He would begin to work solo, eventually emerging from secret in Argentina to head the United Nations Spiral Agency. It was then that he took his new name from an old book, Dr. Daedalus. The old man laughs as he tells his doctor his mind isn't what it used to be, but he holds up a note. You promised that you would deliver this message to my daughter. You promised to stop me if I ever began to repeat myself like a crazy old fool. The doctor nods as he takes the note. Herr Netz, I'll do what I can. Please stay under my umbrella and tell me again about Ouroboros. The jet banks sharply as it lands near the island with the lighthouse, and piloting it is the Hood, master super spy for the British government. He ejects, allowing his parachute to open and take him through the rainy night, and he lands lightly on the island, quickly taking cover behind some rocks, but he's not alone. Deodorant tells me you're female. 5'10", by the sound of your breathing. He tells her, drawing his weapon, finding Batwoman standing before him. Ha! Queen of the bloody vampires, I like it, but don't move, he tells her. She smiles, ordering him to lower his gun, or an orbital laser that is covering her will shoot him in the spine. Batwoman, nice to meet you. She finishes with a smile. The Hood nods as he stands motioning with his gun. One of his lot. It's all non-lethal, by the way. There's something about a statuesque goth redhead in leather that I somehow instinctively trust, so I'll give you the benefit of the doubt. I know who you are. The Colonel nods, telling Batwoman that she found their man. George Cross, Maverick Special Agent. The Hood nods as he holsters his weapon. The Hood when I'm working. Her Majesty's Super Secret Service at your service. He says with a slight bow. They shake hands, but Batwoman explains that she's investigating why 3 Marine officers were killed on their way to the island and how the UK and Argentina are about to go to war over it. The Hood nods, explaining that the last time someone tried to come to this island, an entire UK super team was taken out. We're about to face off with one of the most dangerous old men that has ever lived. And that's where they keep him, the Hood says as he motions to the lighthouse in the distance. Batwoman nods, asking about the super secret weapon that is the real prize, the thing that both countries really want. There's no real keeping that a secret anymore, and anyway, Batman doesn't use military support, so who the hell are you, missus? The Hood asks her as they head into the energy barrier that blocks the island. As they both turn, seeing a swarm of blue scorpions heading towards them. Suddenly, running in silent mode, the bat plane appears overhead, hitting all the scorpions with an electrical shock that disables them. Batman appears behind them, throwing the two heroes to the ground as an energy blast hits the rocks behind them. Okay, you don't look like the Batman I've met before. Are you one of the Batman Inc. guys? Batwoman says as she turns to Batman. Original Batman. Take cover. Batman tells her. El Gucho throws his bolo, forcing Scorpina away as the others all begin to get up and take cover behind the downed helicopter. Apologies, sir. We met once before and it meant a great deal. Batwoman tells Batman. Obviously. Batman nods to her, when suddenly another blast hits them and Scorpina steps out of the shadows, demanding that El Gucho come dance with her. Keep her busy, I'm going in, Batman tells the others as he disappears into the night. Batwoman launches herself across the clearing, dodging two more blasts and kicking the woman in the face. She dodges a tail strike and flips the woman, but the next one slashes through her uniform. Scorpina kicks her again, knocking Batwoman down as she aims her tail laser. But the Hood and El Gucho are now behind her, grabbing her arms and her neck. The woman flips over their heads, preparing to strike, but Batwoman rushes in, kicking the woman so hard in the face that she shatters her helmet. She grabs the woman, pulling her close as she realizes that she is the one who trained the Kathy Kane imposter. This is for Kathy Kane, she snarls as she throws Scorpina on the energy fence, disabling it. The three step through the perimeter with Gucho coming up behind Batwoman. Wait a minute, you knew Kathy Kane too? Then somehow Kathy's the reason we're all here. Already inside of the security field, Batman finds Daedalus with his doctor. And the doctor is shocked by Batman's appearance, but Daedalus continues to ramble on. Batman leans in close, explaining that their security is non-existent, demanding to know who disabled it. The doctor begins to stammer, explaining that he is part of the UN intelligence team that is working with Dr. Netz. The doctor suddenly turns, running into the base of the lighthouse. You think I'd let you into the secrets of my master plan, or him? Fools! Netz laughs. Batman ignores the old man, following the doctor up the lighthouse, and as they near the top, the man calls out to him. Do you know where we are? This is Dr. Daedalus' maze of death, Batman. Did you work it out? At the top of the lighthouse, Batman finds a machine with a hammer placed inside of it. He demands to know what it is, and the doctor explains that the government sent a team of superheroes to stop Daedalus, and one of them left a weapon. It took years, but Daedalus converted it into a meta bomb that they will use to trigger a war and send Batman to hell, the doctor explains. The man laughs, telling the Dark Knight that he couldn't stop it, but suddenly he begins to cough as blood explodes out of his mouth. He drops to the floor, dying before Batman. Hail, Leviathan! He whispers with his last breath. Batman rushes forward, trying to pull the hammer from the device, but it won't budge. Batplane! War mode! Now! He growls into his comms, and on the shore, the three heroes find Daedalus sitting on the ground, staring up at a rainy sky. He continues to ramble, but Batwoman realizes that the voice is actually coming from a recording that the man is holding. Suddenly, the Batplane roars overhead, launching twin missiles at the lighthouse. Batman leaps away just as the lighthouse explodes in a ball of fire, and the other two doctors rush forward, but they are no match for the heroes, who quickly go down. With the crisis averted, El Gucho tries to explain to Batman that he should have told him about Spiral and the final mission with Kathy Kane. El Gucho holds up the recording for Batman as the Dark Knight glares at him. I've always been proud to call you a friend, Santiago. But whether you want it or not, you're working with me now, and I need you to tell me everything. Batwoman and Hood stand over the old man, realizing that he has been taken by Alzheimer's. A senile mastermind working on a project he could never finish. A perfect plan he'd never see completed. Batwoman whispers, but Batman walks up, explaining that it makes so much sense. Except, listen to this recording again. He tells them, pressing the button. The monologue restarts, but Batman explains that while Daedalus has been here for years, there are no natural sounds from the recording. These people brought this with them. I'd hazard that it was recorded recently, far from here. This man isn't Otto Netz. He holds up the goggles and looks into them. He's what happens when you make an enemy out of Otto Netz. Isn't that right, Doctor? Batman asks into the camera. On the other end, Otto Netz looks into the face of Batman. Oh, I'm so terrified, Netz whispers. He stands looking at the smug face of Batman, who thinks that he's figured out his enemy. Netz turns to the person with him. Now we must decipher the mystery of Ouroboros. And so begins the end. You promised me a challenge when you liberated me from my island prison, Leviathan. This is like squashing a bug, he says to the person. Joe Average calls his meeting to order, explaining to the collection of low-rent villains and thugs that since Bruce Wayne and Batman have decided to expand with Batman Incorporated, he has decided to expand Joe Average and the Average Joe's criminal enterprise. He looks up, introducing them to Nero Nikto, the Night Eye, the underworld's own private investigator. The two criminals get back up to check the big man for weapons. "You guys don't mind if I keep my coat on for the cold, right?" The large man rumbles to them, and they agree, with the Night Eye opening up his briefcase, showing them documentation and photographs. "It's best to see yourself how Bruce Wayne gets away with it," he tells them, and he shows them Exhibit A. It was during a press conference that Bruce Wayne was giving an interview outside of Wayne Enterprises. The reporter leaned in, asking if Bruce fears his own safety from these supervillains that might be targeting him. "I'm prominent and a successful citizen of Gotham. My parents were murdered in the street. As you might expect, security isn't the kind of issue I've ever been inclined to overlook," Bruce explains to her, and he leads them out the front door, explaining that there are many rumors about Batman's true identity and how the world no longer knows how many Batmen there are due to Batman Incorporated. But as they step outside, a van fishtails around the street corner. It screeches to a stop, and several armed, masked goons spring out, with Bruce not even looking away from the cameras. Watch carefully. Criminals used to be afraid that they didn't know where Batman was. Things are different now. I can tell you exactly where Batman is, Bruce explains as he turns towards the criminals. Alfred steps forward, tripping one and tasing another, and the last criminal falls to the ground in fear as Bruce is suddenly flanked by several bat drones. Batman is everywhere, and if he didn't exist, well, I guess we just have to invent him. Outside of the city, Batman and Robin move through the garbage of the city dump with James Gordon as the rain and wind lash against them. Batman explains that they know that the mayor is trying to frame Gordon for killing a group of illegal immigrants. As they reach the bottom of the garbage mountain, they find Batman waiting there. "This is the hand of Leonard Blott, mob assassin. If you want the rest of them, pay attention to the gulls," Batman tells Gordon, and Gordon looks at them both, knowing the evidence will make his case watertight. "Two Batmen, huh? Who'd believe it? Does the secret badge make me a Batman too?" Gordon asks, flashing his small Batman badge that he keeps hidden under the collar of his coat. "Pretty much. We'll be in touch." Batman nods, and Robin gets their attention, pointing out the signal in the sky. When Gordon turns back, all three of them are gone. "Huh, he's teaching them to do it," Gordon whispers. Back at the Batcave, Batman leads Tim Drake, the Red Robin, downstairs, explaining that he knows that Tim did excellent work while he was away, and that he should be proud of what he achieved. As they reach the Batcave, Tim's eyes widen as Batman explains that his mission will be international. "Meet your fellow members in the Batman Incorporated stealth team," Batman tells him. And before Red Robin stands the new Outsiders: Katana, Metamorpho, Looker, Halo, and Freight Train. "How does Red Robin and the Outsiders sound?" Halo asks with a smile. Later, Batman stands before the members of Batman Incorporated. He looks at them all, explaining that their opponent is on the global stage, an organization known as the Leviathan. He looks at them all, explaining that they are his closest associates. "I owe it to all of you to tell you about my experience when I was lost in time. Maybe this will help explain what I'm doing." So a short time later, Bruce sits before the Bat computer with Dick and Damian standing behind him, watching as Bruce begins to post several different opinions and responses in an online message board. He smirks as he shows them that they will get people talking about Batman Incorporated, but will also have them believing several different lies and theories that are being argued about. "They'll be lost in a blizzard of rumor, denial, and misinformation," he tells them. And finally he stands, telling the two that they need to discuss Leviathan further. He leads them through the Batcave, telling them everything that he knows. And finally, Dick looks at him. "Bruce, you saw the future. Everything turns out okay, right?" he asks, and Bruce stops for a moment, looking off in the distance. He explains that what he saw is like a dream now, and they finally stop in one of the Batmobiles. "But no, not everyone will survive, Dick," Batman tells him. Meanwhile, over in France, a truck screams down the road as the Night Runner follows close on their heels. Hot on the trail of a child slave trade, Circle 1 goon looks into the side mirror, seeing the vigilante leaping across the roofs of the speeding cars, quickly catching up to them. In their meeting, Nikto explains that Bruce Wayne arrived in Paris shortly after his press conference, and Batman showed up. Joe Average looks at the photos, marveling at the bloody bodies and wondering if Batman is a killer now. Meanwhile, on the Paris road, the Night Runner catches up to the truck, ripping into the cab. Batman lands on the roof above them, trying to stop the driver, and after the truck has crashed, Batman grabs one of the goons, demanding answers. "In the back! Delivery for Jimmy Song!" the thug cries, but Batman opens the truck doors, trying to save the children who are being smuggled. He finds them standing over the bodies of the French criminals, knives in their hands. "Leviathan!" the children shout in chorus to him with a smile. Later, in his hotel room, Bruce explains to Oracle that the children still refuse to speak to the police. "What have you got for me?" he asks her. She explains that she only has rumors, but that Cassandra Cain is following up on the Jimmy Song connection and the Hong Kong lead. In Hong Kong, Black Bat leaps for a helicopter over the city, with Batman entering the bathhouse, explaining to the gangsters that they have everything. "Every email and message you have ever sent, we can give it all to the police or to your wives. Let us talk like businessmen." Batman growls. Black Bat flips into the helicopter, taking out the guards swiftly, taking control of the bird. Black Bat to Batman. $3 million worth of neo-heroin has left the building over Hong Kong Harbor. She radios in. Nikto looks at the group as they continue to go through the photos of Batman's recent exploits. Wayne's in Kuala Lumpur. Batman's in Hong Kong. Batman's a girl. Then Batman's in Melbourne, Australia. Hot on the trail of the slave ring's wealthy clientele. And this one, we're talking a big-time movie star. The Night Eye explains. The group continues to flip through the photos. As you can see, Batman has actually tattooed the words "child molester" onto the man's forehead. Stories that Batman was also in North Africa are unsubstantiated, Nikto explains. Batman is in North Africa working alongside Batwing. Then he's standing before Wingman, explaining that his identity must remain secret. "I get it, Bruce." Wingman nods as he puts on his helmet. Finally, Nikto finishes his report, and he looks at the group. So where do the rumors end? Where does reality begin? Some say Batman died and came back as a god. Nikto says, but he shakes his head. And Joe Average shakes his head. "I'm a practical man, Nikto. I'm Joe Average. Batman is a legitimate target," he explains, and he points to the clock, explaining that the crime bosses from all around the world are joining forces at 6 p.m. for a flash crime event. "If Batman's everywhere, let him prove it," Joe says with a nod, and suddenly the smoke begins to billow out of Nikto's coat. The man's voice changes and he growls at the room. "You asked, Joe." He rumbles and the goons begin to stand, swinging at the dark smoke with their weapons. Joe looks at Nikto in fear, not understanding what is happening. "You guys are way out of your depth in Gotham City." Nikto growls. "You should have stayed in Pennsylvania. We don't have a Batman in Pennsylvania. Not yet." The voice calls out, and suddenly Batman is standing behind Joe, his fist raised. "Welcome to Gotham," he growls. Meanwhile, Daedalus stands with his contact at Leviathan, explaining that they have 500 ready to deploy, each trained to imitate the action of a virus, infiltrate, contaminate, destroy. He laughs as they look at their view of the world far, far below. They move through the neighborhood. Each door, the man of bats knocks, checking in on the residents of the reservation. Each person explains that they are having issues or passing them along to someone who might need help. And they reach the last trailer, but there's no knock at the door. Weird. I hear the baby. I can hear the TV. Man of Bats comments, and Raven shakes his head, explaining to his father that she is probably asleep or drunk. But the Man of Bats steps forward, ignoring his son's protests, kicking in the door. Inside, they find a young woman dead on the couch, her child sitting on the floor covered in his own filth, crying as he points at the TV. Man of Bats reaches down, pulling the suicide note from the young woman's hands, telling Raven to send a bat signal to the hospital. A short time later, Bill continues to help the old woman as a doctor at the hospital. One of the other docs leans in the door, telling him that the new boss wants a word. "Is this you, doctor?" the administrator asks as he puts a newspaper on the desk, showing the Man of Bats being arrested for a protest. The administrator looks up, not pleased, and he explains that while his predecessor turned a blind eye to Bill's antics, he will not. "Don't you think it's time that you leave crime to the police?" Bill folds his arms across his chest, asking how what he does on his off nights is any business of the hospital. "What I do as Man of Bats doesn't impact my work as a doctor," he explains, but the administrator looks up, telling him to be careful. "Things are changing around here," he warns. Later that night, Man of Bats and Raven drive their old pickup through the reservation. Raven still doesn't understand why his father came back and explains that soon he'll be too old to join the Teen Titans. "Nothing important will ever happen here. Raven grumbles. And Man of Bats doesn't even look at his son as he explains that he came back to help the people. Your people, what we do, how we present ourselves, that's what's important. Man of Bats explains, but Raven scoffs. I'd kill to fight one giant robot or a master supervillain, Raven grumbles. The truck pulls into a bar parking lot, and Man of Bats steps out explaining to his son that the Reds gang is more organized than Sam Black Elk, but Raven tries to stop his father, reminding him that he can't prove any of this. In front of them, Sam Black Elk lashes out, kicking his dog. Big man kicking a dog, Man of Bats calls out as he steps forward. The hero snarls at the man, explaining that it's people like him that are destroying their community. You got nothing to do, so you harassed me since I came home, Black Elk calls, and he laughs at the heroes, lashing out, kicking the dog again. Superheroes, you two are just dudes. He grins. Man of Bats uppercuts him hard in the jaw, throwing him against a nearby truck, and Raven turns away. That's it! He shouts as he storms away, but Man of Bats isn't done. He advances on the young man, telling his son that he is a dealer, and he begins to rifle through the man's pockets, pulling out a bag of strange pills. Raven tries to stop his father as Sam Black Elk pulls away, screaming assault, when suddenly the parking lot is full of flashing police lights. He is a known crack dealer, Man of Bats tells his son, and the cops step forward, demanding to see the evidence that Man of Bats has. The hero hands it over, but when the cop tastes it, he just slips it into his mouth with a smile. Well now, I guess we must be making crack cocaine into chewy spearmint flavors these days, Dr. Great Eagle. Doc, you just beat the teeth out of a homeless man, the cop says, and Man of Bats looks at the officer knowing that he is a replacement for an old friend of the duo's. He tries to explain that something is going on the reservation and turns to Raven, asking his son to help. But the teen, he shakes his head and he removes his helmet. You're on your own, Dad. Why is it that everything's more important than your family? Raven asks his father, and he turns back to the truck, telling his father that he can ride with the cops. As the cops begin to arrest Man of Bats, the hero calls out to his son, Come on! Where would Man of Bats be without his little Raven? A short time later, Charlie stands outside of the Batcave. The truck barely made it home, and he sits smoking in the driveway as Charlie explains what happened to the family horses. Charlie shakes his head, moving to the Batcave shed, knowing that he's reached the end of the road on his superhero career. I've heard about the suicide race. 5 miles on a horse over rough terrain, celebrating the anniversary of Little Bighorn. You've won that race 3 years in a row. A voice calls out of the shadows, and Charlie turns to see the flapping cape of Batman standing there. The two head into the shed, looking around at the different souvenirs that Man of Bats and Raven have collected over the years. You don't have much time. You've been targeted by Leviathan agents. I suggest you remove anything of real value before we go, Batman explains, and he looks at the various souvenirs. It doesn't take millions, does it? The idea works. Batman on a budget, he whispers, and Raven puts back on his helmet. My Batmobile just broke down again. How do we get to my dad in time? Elsewhere, in the backseat of the cop car, Man of Bats questions where they're heading. Why are we leaving town? He asks, and Man of Bats leans forward, demanding to know who the cop really is, and the officer turns, seeing the questions in his own partner's eyes. Me? I'm Leviathan. And your history, the cop says with a smirk. Suddenly, Sam Black Elk shifts and reveals that he isn't really cuffed, and he holds up the cuffs, smiling at the Man of Bats. Uh-oh. Thanks to my dad, everybody knows who you are, and that's what makes you vulnerable, he says with an evil smile. The Man of Bats looks shocked as the front police officer pulls a gun, shooting his partner in the head. Sam Black Elk lashes out, stabbing the hero in the stomach with a knife. By night, I'm the Red Ripper, and you were right about my dad and me. He laughs, and he explains that even while Man of Bats helped the community, Sam was recruiting an army. He motions outside to the armed men who have begun to surround the police car, and he pulls out his knife, preparing to stab the hero again. Everywhere the standard of the bat rises, it will be chopped down, and we're going to make an example of you and your little... But Man of Bats lashes out, grabbing the man's arm. Oh yeah? When does that begin? Man of Bats snarls as he elbows him in the face, and outside the officer begins to open up the back door. But Man of Bats kicks it open, the metal slamming into the cop, throwing him away. Man of Bats climbs out, his arm wrapped around Sam's neck as he uses the man as a shield. He looks around at the gathering of criminals. He recognizes their faces. Half of you guys I've never seen here before. Don't think you moved in for the job prospects, he growls, throwing Sam aside, using his hands to keep pressure on the gushing wound. He raises a bloody fist, growling in anger. I'll put the first 5 of you in body casts for 18 months, even wounded. So who wants to take the first shot? He snarls, and one person raises their hand when an arrow suddenly cuts through it. The goons turn around, and another gets a batarang in the face, dropping him. And the rest turn, seeing Batman and Raven riding hard on them. Raven fires another arrow, this one casting a net over a group of thugs. The heroes leap off of the vehicle, jumping amongst the thugs, beginning the fight. As Sam pulls out his gun, he aims for Raven's head, but Mana Bats leaps in the way, catching the round in the thigh as he pushes Raven aside. Raven gets up, trying to protect his father with one of their wooden bat shields. "You think your little wooden shield is going to protect you?" Sam laughs, but he doesn't see the dog coming up from behind. Out for revenge, the animal leaps out, biting the man in the leg. Raven rushes forward, slamming the wood shield into Sam's chin, knocking him down, and then he rushes back over to his father, but Mana Bats shrugs off his concern. "You don't think I had it worse in Iraq? Just need to keep applying pressure before I pass out." Mana Bats instructs his son. As the headlights begin to show in the darkness, more cars begin to arrive, and Mana Bats looks up at his son, promising that he was never trying to hold him back from his dreams of being a superhero. "Pressure! I said pressure! Is that supposed to be pressure?" He suddenly snaps, but Mana Bats begins to slip away, going into shock from the blood loss. As the cars begin to arrive, Sam gets back to his feet, pulling out his pistol. He aims, firing several rounds into Raven's back. "Hail, Leviathan!" he snaps. When suddenly members of the community get out of their cars, grabbing Sam from behind, hauling him away, explaining that they don't want his kind around them. Batman crosses the field, checking to see if Raven's alright, but the teen struggles to his feet, explaining that he and his father have this taken care of. Later, Charlie sits across from his father as they continue the blood transfusion. Charlie gets up, walking down the hospital hallway with Batman, explaining that he had to put on an old bulletproof Ghost Warrior shirt that they kept in the Batcave. "Guess it really does repel bullets," he laughs, and Batman nods. He explains that he's here to find a way to fight against Leviathan. "I need your help. Incorporated can supply you guys with vehicles and equipment," Batman explains, but Raven shakes his head. He tells Batman that whatever he gives Mana Bats, his father will give back to the people. "We can handle this our way, like we always do." Raven tells the Dark Knight, and they step outside with Batman heading for his helicopter. "It's open season on bats. Welcome to the front lines, Raven." Rain pours down, drenching the vast lawns of the boarding school, and inside voices can be heard shouting in chorus. "We have no fear of death, for we are dead! We are dead! We are dead! All hail Leviathan!" The girls in skull masks and costumes shout as Stephanie glances at her friend, the thick ropes that are meant to hang them tightening around their necks. A month ago, a limo pulls up around the front of the school, and some of the students watch from the windows as the blonde-haired girl gets out. "I'd like you all to welcome Miss Brown to the school. She'll be joining us for the new term. So I hope you give her the traditional Saint Hadron's welcome," Miss Hexley tells everyone. And a short time later, Stephanie Brown is standing in front of the class as the headmistress comments on her posture, admonishing her. Embarrassed, Stephanie takes her seat as the other girls watch, and Miss Hexley leaves the classroom with the teacher getting back to her lesson. As I was saying, this is the Mark II fragmentation grenade, also known as a pineapple. "Who'd like to know how to make one of these using materials you can find in any kitchen?" the teacher says with a smile. Time passes and Steph is confronted by a group of girls in the locker room, asking her if she likes to keep fit. "I do like to keep fit," Steph nods to them, and suddenly she stops as one pulls a pistol out, aiming it at her head as another goes through her purse. "Is that right? We heard about you. We heard that your old man was Batman. If so, what does that make you?" the girls ask as they all pull their pistols on Steph. But Steph moves fast, grabbing the girl's arm, twisting it as she pulls the pistol free. "Drop the gun or lose the hand, and the rest of you, kiss my kung fu. As for who my dad is, just be glad you'll never know." Steph snaps as she shoves the girl to the ground. She prepares to fight, but suddenly another teacher is grabbing her by the collar, flipping her to the floor. "You've got a lot to learn about the pecking order, Miss Brown," the teacher comments. A short time later, she sits outside of the headmistress's office, making friends with Jolisa Windsor as she waits on her scalding. Inside, the real headmistress sits in the shadows, as the head teacher explains that Stephanie just checked out. Her father was the late Arthur Brown, the super criminal known as the Clue Master. But the headmistress waves her off as she continues to read Stephanie's bio. The next day, the teacher ends the class on pistol marksmanship, informing the girls that they always need to aim where it hurts. As they walk by Stephanie's station, she comments on her targets. "Excellent shooting, Miss Brown. Miss Hexley tells me that you could be elite material. Don't be surprised if you get invited to a party at the tower sometime soon, she says with a smile, and as she turns to leave, the teacher comments as Stephanie should watch out who she makes friends with. Time continues to pass as Stephanie continues with her studies, and the teachers all watch as Stephanie continues to hold off a group of girls during a hand-to-hand fighting class. I say we give her the makeover, Miss Hadron style, Miss Hexley comments as they continue to discuss her potential. The girls all gang up on Stephanie as she throws her punches and kicks and elbows to hold them off. And later, Miss Hexley offers invitations to both Stephanie and Jolisa Windsor. You both have shown exceptional qualities. In my experience, it's so often the rebels who turn out to be the most loyal soldiers. I'll see you in the tower, she says with a smile, and the two girls are smiling, high-fiving each other after the teachers left. But now we are back at the present, and the skull-faced students continue their course as Stephanie and Jolisa look up at the true headmaster. Tonight you shed your skins. Tonight you surrender yourselves to us. To me, your master of ceremonies, Johnny Valentine, spawn of the foul fiend, child of the boar and his sow, son of the pig. The man wearing the Professor Pig mask says with a smile as he steps out of the shadows, motioning to the girls to step forward as he holds up a heavy needle. I'll teach you what my daddy taught me. He snorts, and he pushes the needle through his hand, watching as the blood oozes down. He reaches down, picking up 2 wafers and offering them to the girls. You will become my suicide commandos, death girls of Leviathan. This wafer will get you in tune with Leviathan's song. In tune, you will no longer value life. Not even your own, Pig says to them, as he reaches forward, offering the wafer to the girls, and they both eat it with the skull girls grabbing them. Pig smiles as he picks up a can of hairspray acid, asking which of the girls betrayed them. Which one of you betrayed us, sending secret messages to someone else in the school? He asks, holding up the spray, preparing to fire it into Jolisa's face. But Stephanie suddenly shouts for them to stop as she tightens her neck against the rope, using it to swing up and kick Pig in the face. She twists, headbutting one of the skull girls, and slips free of her rope, and she reaches out, helping Jolisa escape with her own noose. They're turning you all into suicide dolls. Why would you kill and die for a cult? Stephanie asks as the skull girls begin to close in around them. Because it makes us cooler than everyone else, another responds to her. So Stephanie turns, grabbing the beauty product weapons off of Pig's table. She fires a group of darts from a comb at the incoming enemies, and then grabs a perfume bottle, exploding it and filling the room with tear gas. Catch them! Cut off their faces! Pig shouts as the 2 girls escape, and using a grappling hook, Stephanie shoots up through the gas and into the clear. As the 2 escape from the upper window of the tower, Stephanie pulls up her Batgirl costume that she had stashed on the roof. I knew you were Batman's daughter! I said that there'd be a Bat daughter! Jolisa shouts, but Stephanie just shoots a grappling hook, gliding them both down to the school grounds. At the front gate, Batgirl locks up a chain around the gate, and she turns, explaining to Jolisa that Batman sent her to spoil Saint Hadron's whole operation. That's what I do, and nobody leaves until I'm done, Batgirl says, and then she turns, seeing Pig and his Skullgirls rushing out of the tower, heading towards them. But as the group begins to chase them across the grounds, Batman himself descends out of the trees. He slams Pig against the ground, ripping off the villain's mask. Class dismissed! Batman growls as he looks up at the schoolgirls. Batgirl is suddenly there, kicking and punching her way through the Skullgirls, knocking away their weapons as she defeats them quickly. And Batman nods as she continues to fight. Outstanding work, Batgirl. When you're done here, meet me at the headmistress's office. Batman glides away, with Batgirl turning back to the girls that she just shared the classroom with for a month. You're all spoiled brats with some martial arts. I'll happily smack that skull off your face. She snaps at one of the girls. We're not your problem. Your little friend is, the girl says, pointing over Batgirl's shoulder. Suddenly, Steph realizes that Jolisa ate the wafer that Pig offered her. She turns, finding her friend, aiming a pistol at her. You hijacked my ceremony, and all I had to do was kill you to prove myself. But Steph just smiles. Meanwhile, in the headmistress's office, Miss Hexley continues to pack her things. She looks up, not startled, to find Batman standing before her. He holds up a flash drive, explaining that this was everything that he needed to take the school down. But Hexley smiles, lifting a crossbow. But you don't have her, do you? The headmistress, and you never did. She looks at him, asking if he knows how many men she's killed with her crossbow. Do you know how many people have told me that line? He asks her simply. And suddenly the window explodes inward as Batgirl flies through it. She slams into Hexley, setting off the crossbow, but Batman catches the arrow easily, smiling at Steph, looming over the woman now. Always keep an eye on your rear, Miss Hexley, Batman growls. And now we travel to another Batman Incorporated story in the Leviathan Strikes arc. Over the loudspeaker, Daedalus is laughing. All your plans, your schemes, your tactics, all for nothing. Rats in a trap waiting to die, he taunts the heroes. The group of heroes look around them, black smoke billowing into a room as Daedalus informs them that they have 5 doors. Only one leading to freedom and the others to death. A Batman Incorporated agent will be killed every 5 minutes. The countdown is underway. Daedalus informs them as the 20-minute timer appears overhead, and Batman reaches out his hand. The white door, he tells Batman, Red Robin, and Robin. Batman, no! Remember what happened last time? Robin shouts. Last time? Batman questions, but suddenly he's standing in a domed room. Come to my parlor, Batman. How long has it been since we last faced each other? Daedalus turns, the old man smiling in his spider robot throne, and he tells Batman that it was possibly moments ago that he's already told him all of this. Some of the words come from the old man, others seem to be coming from the speakers, as Daedalus explains that the gas that Batman has been breathing in acts as a powerful, mind-eroding agent. He pulls out his rebreather as spiral agents attack him, and as they begin their battle, Daedalus continues to monologue about his labyrinth, about how it was designed to break even the strongest of wills. What happens to the mind when there's no way out? Daedalus questions as Batman throws a spiral agent away. Why? Batman shouts at Daedalus, but he suddenly stops. I asked you that already, didn't I? He questions, and Daedalus laughs, explaining that Batman keeps asking that question. He comments that Batman's rebreather has run out of oxygen some time ago, and that the gas is mimicking the effects of Alzheimer's. Meanwhile, over in Africa, Batwing heads out onto the rooftop of his palace. He gets on the radio trying to tell Oracle that everything Batman thinks he knows about Jezebel Jet, the woman that formerly ran his African country, who Batman believes is running Leviathan, is wrong. Oracle, tell Batman, I know who is really in charge of Leviathan, Batwing shouts, with the clock reaching 15 minutes. Batwing takes to the sky, looking behind him in shock as the giant bat wings flap behind him. Meanwhile, back in the chamber with the gas, Batman removes his rebreather, telling Daedalus that his people are smarter than Leviathan. We tracked Leviathan's influence back to Matamba, Africa. Ah, the Jezebel Jet. Yes, you said. Did I tell you that your African agent was the first to die? Daedalus asks with a wave of his hand. The screen suddenly appears, showing Batman the other times that he has walked into this chamber, and the different times on the countdown. Savor the last memory, Batman, it will never return, Daedalus says over the speaker, so Batman reaches for the man, pulling him out of his chair, but all he shakes is a stuffed mannequin as he demands to know where Netz is. The countdown reaches 10, and in the offices of MI6, the Hood continues to work on a computer. He suddenly turns, shocked to find someone standing there with a gun. Gunshots echoing throughout the building. Batman's mind continues to warp when suddenly he is back in Crime Alley. He looks up, seeing a tower before him as he throws aside the doll of Daedalus. And inside the round room, Dick Grayson, Red Robin, and Robin continue to fight against the spiral agents. Robin, highball! Batman shouts with Robin springing over Grayson's shoulders, kicking the last spiral agent down. Now can we find my father? Damian questions. Red Robin pulls off one of the agent's masks, shocked to see the man who acts as Night Runner in France. Batman nods as he pulls the mask of another, recognizing the face of the Dark Ranger from Australia. All the agents are actually members of Batman Incorporated. The SOS must have brought them all here, which means that there could be more Batman Incorporated agents here as well, Red Robin says. And Tim continues to look around the room, finally figuring out what the different colored doors are and realizing that they are merely a distraction. The whole place is one huge mechanism. Rotating drums, identical rooms, the labyrinth of Dr. Daedalus. He can't be far then! Someone has to take charge here, Robin says as he reaches out for another door. Back in the chamber, Batman looks around in shock as the room is suddenly old and falling apart, with Daedalus continuing to monologue over the speaker as Batman crosses the room. Inside the villain's chair, he finds nothing but the rotting bones of the villain, and he growls at the skeleton as the speaker continues. Even now, you are defeated. There is no Otto Netz. Netz is gone, and I am the plan that he left behind. Recordings cannot be bargained with. Netz cannot be reasoned with. Batman senses movement behind him, and he turns just in time for El Guacho to punch him in the jaw, and he falls to the ground. On the platform above, Daedalus steps out. You see, Batman, there has always been at least one double agent. Agent 33 of Spiral. Next hobbles down on his cane, promising to reward El Guacho for his betrayal, and he holds up a detonator, pressing a button. The tanker ship explodes, quickly beginning to sink into the ocean. Over the Batcoms, Oracle begins to reach out to any Batman agents that can hear her. Can anyone hear me? We've lost all contact with Batman and the others when they boarded the Leviathan. She reaches out to the outsiders who have boarded the Leviathan orbital base. Meanwhile, inside of the base, the team has been moving quickly, taking down the few guards that they find. And then they get over the comms telling Oracle that the base has been abandoned and that they are stripping it down. They find the command center, quickly melting through the doors, and inside, looking through the viewport, at Earth is a man in a skeleton costume. He turns with a flourish, laughing at the heroes. Ha ha ha! Welcome to the Dead Heroes Club! Suddenly, the station detonates over the planet, with Oracle connecting to Internet 3.0, taking charge of the robots and sending the tanker ship that Batman and the others were last on. We'll rendezvous with El Guacho on board. She tells everyone over the comms. On the tanker, Daedalus laughs. No, this isn't happening, Batman. It happened last time, Batman. Can you hear me? He asks as the Dark Knight crawls across the floor. Batman looks up at the timer and the world map that is displayed on the screen over Daedalus' throne. Oracle can't seem to center of spiral, he gasps. Netz pulls out the topper of his cane, revealing a sharp knife, and he looks over at El Guacho, who now holds a vial of poison. While he is weak, you may administer the poison to Batman, for we are sinking now. He smiles as El Guacho opens up the vial. She told me that he liked puzzles, so I created a puzzle that even he couldn't solve, he says with a smile. And El Guacho crosses the room, holding Batman's head as he drops the liquid into the Dark Knight's mouth. It's over, Batman. Let it happen. He whispers, and El Guacho suddenly stands, explaining to Daedalus that the man is wrong about him. I gave Batman the antidote to the gas. The tango of death is over. El Guacho shouts as he turns and lunges at Netz, but the man laughs, moving faster than an old man should, stabbing El Guacho in the throat with his knife. That is where you're wrong. Every 5 minutes an agent dies. He calls out. Using the end of the cane, he crosses the room and begins to shock Batman, who is still too weak to stand. Daedalus continues to shock him, explaining that Batman can't stop all the meta bombs that he has placed throughout the world. Go on! I want to see you try! All you have to do is reach the failsafe before I kill your heart with 500,000 volts! He sneers as Batman continues to struggle forward. On the floor, El Guacho braces himself as he pulls the dagger out of his throat, spraying blood all around him. Daedalus turns smiling as he tells El Guacho that he doesn't have the strength left to throw the knife, and the man's eyes roll to the back of his head as the knife falls from his grasp before he can throw it. Netz turns back to the Batman, who is continuing to reach out for the failsafe button on the bombs that Netz has placed around the world, when suddenly the knife flies across the room, stabbing the villain in the head. Batman gasps as he hits the button deactivating the bombs. And then he turns, seeing Robin standing over El Guacho's body. Father, I'm sorry. He was going to kill you, Robin whispers and Batman nods. It isn't over, he whispers, and outside the robots grab the sinking tanker and pull it to shore. Inside, the Bat family made their way through the derelict corridors, and Batman explains to the others that Netz was a misdirection to distract them on the eve of the war. They stop at another door with a spiral eye and web on it. Red Robin explains that Batwing's last message told them that it wasn't Jezebel Jet behind Leviathan. The demon's head. It can't be her, Batman whispers as he slams open the door, and inside they find the head of Jezebel Jet sitting on the counter. Under a glass dome, a red phone sits next to her, and it begins to ring. Batman picks it up, pausing for a moment. Before this starts, we need to talk. Don't do this. Talk to me. Well, so this is what it takes to get your attention, Batman, the voice says to him. She explains that it is too late, that a $500 million bounty has been placed on Damian Wayne's head. We're at war now, as I've promised, she explains. And in her base of operations, the head of Leviathan removes her mask, sitting in her throne as she explains that she has assassins everywhere. Now I must destroy you completely, the voice calls out. And in the room, Damian looks shocked as he hears the voice of his mother. Your move, beloved, Talia says, as she sits at her throne. As the rain pours down, Bruce bows his head before his parents' grave. He turns back to see Alfred, telling his old friend that it's over, and he needs to tell the others. Isn't that what they want, Master Bruce? Both men turn and they see that they are surrounded by the police. Bruce Wayne! You're under arrest! Hands in the air! Commissioner Gordon shouts. To understand this moment in time, we must go a month prior. Batman and Robin leap out of their car, following the gun-wielding man in the goat mask as he runs through the rain, throwing bullets back at them haphazardly. Inside, he rushes past the meat factory workers, still firing his gun and forcing Batman and Robin to throw the workers to safety. As they move through the factory, some of the workers begin to pull down their goat masks, when suddenly the Dark Knight duo appear. "They're wearing chainmail underneath their aprons, Robin," Batman shouts as he ducks under the thug's saw, forcing him to screech against his friends. Robin slides through the bloody floor, taking out one of the legs of one of the goons with his sharp batarangs. Batman continues to fight with the goons' saws cutting through the hanging meat around them. Elsewhere in the city, criminal masterminds are sitting around a table as the ghoul-masked leader of Leviathan watches them. Eat as Leviathan eats, drink as Leviathan drinks, embrace Leviathan, and consider yourselves the fortunate ones, Talia intones as the criminal lords continue to stuff themselves full. Back in the meat packing plant, Robin tackles the man in the goat mask, slamming him hard into the bloody floor. "Chuck!" Robin snarls, but the goat doesn't struggle. "Now shoot him!" He shouts into his earpiece, but as Robin grabs the man by the collar, meaning to interrogate him, a round rips through the window, piercing the man's spine. Shocked, Robin drops the body to the floor. "It wasn't me! I didn't do it!" Robin shouts to Batman, but Batman isn't listening. He jumps at his son, pulling him out of the way as another round rips through the window. Across the city, armed with a high-powered rocket rifle, the sniper turns away from his rooftop. He leaps through the air, trying to desperately get away. He's not going to let them take his son and put him into foster care. A small-time former killer for hire who knows these streets better than anyone. When Leviathan put the bounty out on Robin, he almost had no choice. What would any caring father do? He asks himself as he continues to run and leap across the rooftops. Back at the plant, Batman and Robin finish tying up the thugs as Batman explains that the Goatmen were trying to lead them into a trap. The foreman walks in shocked at the destruction in the room, and he reaches for another of the cows in the holding pens. "I've got work to do. Time is money. If I don't get this place up and running again," he starts to state, but Robin stops him. "Not that one. We're saving that one. We need to do some tests," Robin tells the man as he points at the cow with the funny bat shape on its head. Batman nods, leaning into the cow and examining the star that has been branded onto its hindquarters. Robin nods as he nears his new best friend. "As of now, I'm a vegetarian, and this is Bat Cow." At the Leviathan dinner, one of the Grimm brothers stands up, smiling at the ghoul, telling her that while he appreciates the dinner and the drink, he and his brother have been running the West Side clubs for a long time. The West Side belongs to Leviathan. "You have no choice but to agree, Mr. Grimm," Talia tells him from behind her mask. Behind her, two large man-bats step through the door. Grimm gets a look of fear on his face, telling her that he means no disrespect and that his brother could explain better than him. "The others ate beef. You ate your brother, brains too," Talia tells Grimm simply. Fear fills the man's eyes as the man-bats close in. Elsewhere in the city, Batman and Robin cruise down the streets in the Batmobile. Batman doesn't take his eyes off the road as he questions Robin about the man's death. "After you killed the spook, you promised never again," Batman growls, but Robin just scowls, reminding Batman that if he hadn't killed Netz, then Batman would be dead and the world would be in ruins. "Are you really gonna lecture me every time we're together?" Damian grumbles. He scowls, pulling on his hood, reminding his father that Grayson never lectured him when they were working together. When Grayson was Batman, things were better. The roof of the car slides open as Robin prepares to jump onto the speeding meatpacking plant truck. "I don't know why you bothered coming back from the dead. We were fine without you. We had everything under control," Robin yells as he leaps into the air. Gliding into the night, he lands on the roof of the truck, planting a bat bomb on the windshield. The glass shatters, forcing the drivers off the road, and as Robin pulls the men out, Batman looks at the same star that was branded on the cow. The Demon Star, another name for Al Ghul, in the constellation of Perseus. In Arabic, Al Ghul. Robin explains, and they both turn in shock as a body slams into the pavement nearby. Both Batman and Robin look up into the night sky in surprise. Meanwhile, over on the west side of Gotham, the new Leviathan turf, the Hood walks through an adult toy store, slipping into his costume in the dressing room and revealing a hidden door in the wall. Inside, he finds the other heroes that supposedly died during Otto Netz's attack. Heroes that Leviathan believes are dead. The mysterious Wingman steps out of the shadows to inform everyone that Batman has put him in charge of this team. "So like it or not, here's what we're going to do," he begins to explain. Batman and Robin continue their patrol of the city, with Batman explaining that when they're done, Robin is heading right back to the Batcave. Your mother put a bounty on your head. We have to assume that every assassin in the world is gunning for you. They land on the rooftop looking at the gang of street mutants that are unloading the meat-packing truck. You say that like it's a good thing, Robin points out, and Batman nods at the gang. It is. It means that they're right where we want them. Just like that gang of mutants. They leap down amongst the thugs, and Robin immediately cartwheels, kicking and punching amongst them. What Robin didn't see is the goat-masked assassin aiming his weapon at the back of the Boy Wonder's head. He grabs the last of the mutants, demanding answers before flipping the guy to the ground. What the goat man didn't see was Batman slipping up behind him. He senses it at the last minute, turning in fear. It's later that the dried blood covers the goat boy's face. Someone pulls off his blindfold and he stands before the ghoul-masked Talia. Next to him stands another man, both flanked by Leviathan soldiers and Talia's personal bodyguard. He's failed, and there's a price. The honest man has riches to gain. A different reward awaits the liar, she tells them both. The bodyguard grabs the man on the right, lifting and squeezing his neck. I got no reason to lie. It's true about my kid. If you don't believe the rest of it, I have proof right here. It happened so fast, Goat Boy says as he holds up his phone. He explains that he shot Batman in the head, but his mask deflected the bullet. But I hurt him, blinded him, and when I saw my chance, I took aim at the kid's future, Goat Boy explains as he hands Talia the phone. Goat Boy nods as he tells her that he shot Robin in the head, and now Batman is on him with all of his fury. Talia looks down at the photo, staring at Batman cradling Robin's dead body. Roz met Talia's mother at a charity music concert. He explained that while some people were giving what they could, it was the rich who refused to give up their money. Once Talia was born, Roz carried her up to one of the tallest mountains in the Himalayas and held her to the world. One day, this world will belong to you, my love, he told his baby daughter. Now in the present day, Talia steps into her father's throne room. My daughter, congratulations, he never saw you coming, Roz tells his daughter with a smile. He underestimated me, as many do. He always does. Talia tells her father with a nod. Roz nods but steps forward, informing his daughter that he cannot allow her war with the dark detective. Allow it? And how will you stop me, father? She asks. But the guards surround her, and Roz explains that she has put herself at his mercy in his lair. Consider yourself my prisoner. For your own good, he tells her, asking if he has not always done what is best for her. Her childhood was spent training in swordplay, studying in the desert while her father works. She ran down the stairs one day and saw the servants carrying her bloodied father to the Lazarus pit. It was that day, while she cried, that her nanny explained that the pit would bring him back from the dead, and he sprang out of that green liquid. Talia ran to her father in joy. Don't go to him! The Lazarus fever is upon him! Her nanny shouted, but it was too late, and a crazed Roz slapped her away. I gave you everything that you asked for, Roz explains to his daughter in the present day, without ever stopping to wonder what I actually wanted. She tells him, he wasn't wrong. Her childhood was spent getting everything she could possibly want. I wanted a mother. Talia snaps at him. She was a teen who had slipped away from her bodyguards, and she found the fortune teller. They tell me that you can see the future in the cards and the stars. Can you see mine? Talia asks the woman. Though Talia doubted her words, the woman shows her a map of the stars. She pointed out the Algol, the demon star, and she explains that it's a binary star, 2 in 1, both Talia and her father. She also explains that it is the eye of Medusa, once a beautiful woman that was cursed by the gods. Don't let him scorn you as he did me, the fortune teller tells her. What are you talking about? You don't know anything about me. Talia says, anger flashing in her eyes, but the woman shakes her head, explaining that she knew what it was like to carry Talia in her womb. I begged to join him in the Lazarus pit, but he keeps it for himself, she hisses, and as the woman begins to rant, she tells Talia that her father is a lord of lies. Ubu appears behind her with a knife. Did he hurt you, Lady Talia? He questions as he wraps his arm around her neck. Time continues forward. Roz brought Talia to a secret lair underneath the streets of London, where they were attacked by ninjas. The fight was over in seconds, with Talia standing over the bodies of several of the fallen. I rarely get a chance to practice my lethal martial arts, she whispers. When she was a young woman, she was leaving the university, when suddenly she was surrounded by several well-dressed goons. Dr. Dark, I take it that this is a formal kidnapped attempt. She asks the leader of the men, Not so much an attempt, my dear. You are already my prisoner, a hostage in a secret war that spans the globe. Your fate is sealed, Dark informs her. He leads her to a train station while Talia explains that while Dark does believe her to be a worthy bargaining chip, he does little to comprehend her father's ruthless interest. They both sit down on the train and Talia looks out the window. Have you ever even asked yourself why I allowed this abduction in the first place? Dark pauses for a moment. What? You have no choice in the matter, he tells her. Talia smiles, explaining that she and her father aren't on speaking terms and that Dark would be smarter to let her go at the next station. But the man shakes his head, grabbing her by the hand, explaining that they aren't going to reach the next station. Time to depart. I've prepared a welcome for our Dark pursuer, Dark tells her with a scowl. Outside the train, Batman is met by Dark's ninja henchmen. That was when he and Talia first met, captured by Dark and his organization, though he would eventually rescue her. Meanwhile, in the present day, Talia knows that her father maneuvered her into a one-sided love affair, in hopes that they would have a strong child for him to call his grandson, a Dark King for a new age. But Talia understood the truth, that Ra's al Ghul would never give up his power willingly. Ra's faced Batman in a duel to the death, letting the desert decide if the Dark Knight was to be Raz's successor. Even though Batman fell to the sting of a scorpion, it was Talia that intervened and made sure that he would survive that day. A final kiss gave him the anti-venom, and Batman faced Ra's once more. For her act of love, Batman and Talia shared one night together. Damian was born. Talia began to build her empire, ushering in various countries and villains to Leviathan's cause. She would eventually bring Damian to his father, telling the boy to choose who he wished to be with. Do I have to choose? I would rather us all be together, Damian told her. Talia now stands before her father, telling him that Damian was brought down by a common assassin's bullet. Except Damian is not dead. He is a pawn in this game, a game that has already begun. My detective walked away when I offered him peace. When I offered him a family and a future, I promised love. He chose war, she tells him, when suddenly all the guards turn, aiming their weapons at Ra's. Underestimating me is a common and fatal error. Your men work for me, Daddy, Talia explains as she pulls off her ghoul mask. Raz's trained assassins try to step in, but Talia's massive bodyguard suddenly appears behind them, smashing their heads together. Though he stands shocked, Raz finally turns to his daughter. Well played, daughter. You make me proud. For the first time, I think I might actually be afraid for our detective. The woman was captured at Gotham Central Station, her eyes widening as the drug-soaked cloth was placed over her mouth. A short time later, she walked into a classroom full of unruly students, and across the blackboard she placed the Leviathan flag. Okay, listen up, you little scumbags. Everything you've been taught is a lie, she tells them. The kids are all shocked as the teacher pulls out a gun. Today we're going to learn something new. Leviathan brings a better way, she tells them. Some parents complained, but they were quickly detained and their children put into the system. Leviathan grew unseen. In a seedy club, the crowd watches as the beautiful woman's voice sweeps over them. At a lone table, Small Fry leans over. He's shocked to hear Matches Malone, as many people in the underworld thought the man was dead. So I'm suspicious, that's all. Let me look you in the face, Small Fry says, leaning forward, and Matches Malone smiles as he lights a match, holding it to his face. Do I look dead? He asks, and he motions to Small Fry's bodyguard, telling them to get them some drinks. And after a brief moment of chit-chat, Matches gets down to business. I need a contact in Leviathan, he tells Small Fry, but the tiny crime boss shakes his head. Nobody talks about Leviathan, just be glad you're not Batman, Small Fry tells him. But Matches isn't listening anymore. He watches as two goons try to grab the singer and drag her out of the club. Small Fry tries to stop him, but Matches stands up, crossing the room, talking about saving the damsel in distress. Back off, muchachos, I'm a master of karate. And just in case you think my lifelong dedication to non-violence gives you boys an unfair advantage, my crew does all the dirty work, Matches tells the two large thugs. Suddenly behind him appear three dangerous-looking men, and the thugs' confidence begins to waver as they begin to leave. They won't always be around, they shout to the singer. With a snap of his fingers, Matches' goons slip back into the darkness of the club. The singer leans forward, introducing herself as Lamina Lux. I've heard things about you, Mr. Malone, but nobody prepared me for Sir Galahad, she says in a silky voice. Matches smiles, asking what the thugs wanted with her. They came with a job offer. They started out ugly and turned way uglier. I asked if their boss could pay me in drugs, she explains to him. Matches frowns, explaining that he doesn't like drugs. But Lumina explains that the drug is an immune suppressant meant for her kid sister, who has multiple sclerosis. What's the occasion? Matches asks about the job. A wake for the Brothers Grimm, she tells him. But she pauses as she looks over her shoulder, her eyes widening, and Batman stands behind him. Matches Malone, here's the word for my street. Tread carefully or find yourself hitching west in your underpants. Batman growls and Matches jumps in fear. Welcome home to Gotham, he snaps. Back in the Batcave, Dick apologizes for interrupting Bruce's intel gathering. I didn't know she was about to talk. I arrived exactly when we agreed. Dick explains as he hangs up the batsuit, but Bruce waves off the apology, thanking Dick for helping him. Bruce continues to work at the computer, explaining that he discovered that Anthony Grimm was dropped from a 1,500 feet fall by Talia's Man-Bat commandos. Dick and Damian cross the room, looking in shock at Leviathan's web that Batman has brought up on the computer. Alfred interrupts from his place, grooming the new Bat Cow. If I may interrupt, the animal does carry a synthetic hormone as suspected, derived from Professor Pig's pharmaceutical breakthroughs, it seems. Hamburgers for sale and Dark Tower outlets conceal a mind control drug precursor. Alfred explains to them, and Dick is surprised to hear about Pig, but Bruce just nods. The Assassin's League is here. They're all here, somewhere in the city. Damian still isn't happy about being grounded, but Batman explains that he had a giant target on his back, letting Talia think that she killed him. It's much safer for the world if Robin is dead. Yes, Father, but Mother knows that this is a ruse. She's doing this to separate me from you, to leave you unprotected. Damian explains to his father, barely containing his anger. Don't worry, I can take care of myself, Bruce says with a smile as he pulls back on his Matches Malone disguise. Later, back in the CD bar, Matches sits across from Goat Boy as the sniper explains the weird symbolism of Leviathan. Behind them, a different woman is singing on the stage. I need gossip on the street, Goat Boy. You say you killed Robin. Where do you collect your $500 million reward? Matches asks. Goat Boy is drunk, rambling as sweat pours down his forehead. He's afraid. He explains that even though he was blindfolded, he knows where they took him. I smelled that thing. I heard they used Batman's DNA to build a Frankenstein monster. I saw it kill a guy. He begins to ramble, but after hearing everything, Matches gets up and asks the bartender about Lumina Lux. The man just shrugs and tells him that the woman got a better job. Stepping out of the bar into a rainy night, Matches raises his hand and hails a cab that conveniently pulls up. Leviathan HQ, cabby. Proceed to target 1. Matches tells Alfred. Allies await your command, sir. Camouflage glass on. Feel free to transform. Alfred tells Master Bruce, and Bruce begins to change into his bat suit. Malone's cell begins to buzz, and Bruce answers it, hearing the voice of Lumina Lux on the other side. Matches, are you there? I need your help, she whispers to him. I missed your pipes tonight. Where were you, sweetheart? Bruce asks, speaking in his Matches voice. Matches, I think I'm in trouble. The wake for the Brothers Grimm, it's not a wake. It's some sort of masquerade. Something's wrong. These are bad people, killers. I don't know why I'm telling you this. I just know that I saw something in your smile. I have to go. She hangs up, and in the rain-soaked streets of Gotham, Bruce finishes changing. Abrupt change of plans, Alfred. You heard the lady. Target 2. Lux is singing inside the large house as Matches walks up to the front door, banging on the knocker. The door swings open to reveal 2 goons. They throw a plastic bag over his head and hit him in the stomach. Back in the Batcave, Alfred walks into the garage to explain the new plan to Damian. But as he speaks, he suddenly becomes dizzy, slumping to the floor. Damian gets up from the bike he's working on and he walks out of the room. My apologies, Pennyworth. Robin is grounded. Redbird makes his own rules, Damian says as he pulls on a new costume. Inside the house, Goat Boy walks up to Matches, who is gasping for air on the ground. He points up to the swinging body of Small Fry and explains that he had to choose 3 sacrifices. There had to be a scapegoat, Malone! You walked right into this. The House of Assassins is a roach motel for snoops, he shouts. And as a man dressed as a hangman leans forward, Matches pulls out one of his matches and flicks it to life. Outside, Redbird pulls himself up the wall and knocks out one of the guards. Another comes to check on the body, but he's pulled into the air by a trap. Another comes rushing over to help, but the body drops on him, knocking them both out. Dogs suddenly rush across the compound, and Redbird turns, drawing his escrima sticks. Go on then! Bring it! He snarls. As the noose tightens around Malone's neck, he still holds his match. He drops it to the ground, letting it light the trail that he left as he elbows the hangman in the face. The deranged judge begins to shout as the trail of gunpowder lights up. The hangman rushes out of the room, trying to stamp the trail of fire, but he's too slow. Matches laughs as he rips the plastic bag off of his head. Call Guinness! I just set a new record for holding my breath. He shouts as he begins to run. The doors burst open with gun-wielding goons rushing inside, and the entrance to the house explodes as a trail of gunpowder leads to it. Assassins pouring out, met by members of Batman Incorporated. World's greatest assassins meet Batman's front line, the Hood shouts as he tases one of the assassins. Gunfire erupts from the upstairs balcony and the bullets hit El Guacho's motorcycle. The hero ditches it, knocking one of the other assassins to the ground as Hood opens fire with his bow. The arrow pierces the man's shoulder, dropping him to the floor. More assassins flood into the house's foyer as the heroes continue their battle, when suddenly an arrow flies through the air, piercing El Guacho's arm. Little flies to the spider's web. Malcolm Merlin laughs from across the burning room. Behind the house, Redbird looks up at the sound of destruction and combat, and around him the dogs lay unconscious. He fires a grappling hook into the air, climbing up to the roof, and inside, El Guacho and the Hood take cover behind a wall. I've had worse. Guacho hisses at his wound. If it wasn't for me, it would have gone straight through your head. Hood tells him. Show me what makes you so special, mate. The Hood shouts as he draws an arrow, stepping back out into the fire. He jumps back as two arrows slice through the wood and string of his bow. Who antagonizes an armed killer like that? El Guacho snaps. Inside the foyer, Merlin motions to the other killers around him. Buffoons, kill them! He, the Hood, and El Guacho all step out, meeting the assassins in hand-to-hand combat, but Merlin merely shakes his head and begins to walk away. I won't waste my time with your hired goons. Batman is here somewhere, he calls out. And as he reaches the top of the stairs, he sees a dark-cloaked figure walking towards him. Hired? If the others are anything like me, we're doing this because we love it. Wingman jokes as he begins to beat three assassins into submission. He stands up, not even winded from his fight. So go on, take your shot before I get to you, he tells the archer, and Merlin draws another arrow. No one is faster than Merlin, the villain begins, but he stops as an arrow pierces through his hand, shattering his bow. He looks in shock to his left to see Redbird staring at him, motioning for him to be quiet. Wingman walks over, tasing the archer. They do say that pride goeth before the fall. Down, boy, the vigilante jokes. He flips across the blazing hall, landing next to Redbird, taking up a position at the door. You're not supposed to be here, he growls. Do I know you? Damian asks. Something about this hero is working at Damian's memory, when suddenly the door bursts open and the two goons run out in fear, blood leaking from several wounds and broken bones. Inside, Wingman and Redbird find matches standing around several unconscious bodies. Damian, what did I tell you? Bruce asks as he begins to remove his disguise. Why are you looking at me like that? You told me Robin was grounded. Robin, not Redbird. Damian shouts at his father and he points at Bruce, explaining that he knew Talia would set up this trap and he wanted to help Matches Malone and the group. But Bruce shakes his head as more assassins begin to take up positions at the door. We'll talk later. We have work to do. Rules are simple. Batman Incorporated versus 30 of the world's greatest assassins in a confined space. No one in and no one out until we're done. Wingman and Redbird leap into the fight as the assassins begin to flood into the room, Bruce nodding as he hits his comms. Commence phase 2, he orders Alfred, and over in the Batcave, Alfred continues to rub his headpiece as he hits a button on the computer. Phase 2, sir, commencing. He confirms. On cue, Nightwing, Knight, and Red Robin explode through the glass windows into the assassin's dining room. Squire is beneath the floor, cutting the power to the building on Knight's command, and the house is plunged into darkness as the members of Batman Incorporated continue to battle using their night vision. Leviathan! I know you can hear me. How many more can you afford to lose? Bruce asks as he pulls on his bat suit. As many as it takes. Others are coming to take their place, Talia tells Batman over the house comms. Wingman gets on the comms, ordering Batwing to keep an eye out to the rooftops. Batwing confirms that the Man-Bat commandos are incoming, and he holds up a sonic cannon that he was given, dropping them all out of the sky. Elsewhere in the house, Goat Boy is dragging Lumina Lux away, a gun pressed to her head. He's still rambling, talking about how he needs 3 sacrifices to get into the League of Assassins. She begs him to let her go, but he only becomes more angry. I did this for my child, so shut your face! You don't look at me. You don't get to judge me. He snaps at her as he continues to drag her through the dark house, when suddenly a spotlight snaps to life, shining on them. Goat Boy raises his gun, scared, as Batman stands before him. Your boy will be taken care of. Put the gun down. Let her go, Batman commands. As Goat Boy raises his pistol, Lumina twists and drives a fork into his neck. Goat Boy gasps in pain as his throat fills with blood and he collapses to the floor. What have I done? She gasps as she stares at the body, and Batman looks at her. You don't have a sister, Miss Lux. You're the one with multiple sclerosis. I'll tell them that it was self-defense and hide these. Batman tells her as he tosses her some of the drugs that help her condition. Batman Incorporated agents all gather within the foyer, and Batman informs them that they've done a good job. They've disposed of the assassins. Leviathan, talk to me. This is what happens when you put all your eggs in one basket. The League of Assassins is broken. Call your war, Talia. Meet me. Let's talk. Tell Damien who your wingman is, and maybe I'll talk. Talia calls over the comms. Damien turns to the hero, Wingman, demanding to know what her mother is talking about, and Wingman nods, pulling off his helmet. Batman said that he needed someone on both sides. So much for my disguise. Jason Todd tells Damien as he removes the helmet. Anger fills Damien as he turns to his father. Tell me this is a joke! He snaps, but Batman shakes his head. You shouldn't have come here. We're not playing games or joking. What does everyone know that I don't? Damien demands to know. And sadness seems to fill Batman as he explains to Damien that this is the end of Robin. That Talia has backed them into a corner, and he needs to return to her. If you don't, Gotham, the world, will be plunged into darkness, and you, Damien, you're going to be responsible. Outside, the police begin to clean up after the League of Assassins. And inside, Bruce looks down at his son who has fallen to his knees. I saw the future. I know what your mother is planning, Damien. She wanted you to join me as Robin. She intends for you to replace me, but that cannot happen because if you become Batman, everything falls apart. Bruce tells him, and Damien looks up scowling. In the future, Damien is still scowling under that cowl. The city is burning behind him as the crazed Jokers crowd forward, weapons in hand. Damien, in the Batman outfit, holds the child tighter as he holds up his gauntlet. Robat, tracking, maximum acceleration, engage weapons, he commands. And as the crazed citizens surge forward, the Robat shatters through the window, machine guns barking as rounds rip through the crowd. Batman jumps, grabbing onto one of the Robat's glider handles, letting it carry him across the Bat bunker at the top of Wayne Tower. Then they fly through the other window, sailing over the burning city. Arkham Asylum has become a fortress island. One of the guards peers through his binos, yelling to the others that Batman is on his way. He won't make it, the guard shouts, but Barbara shakes her head from her wheelchair. Oh, he'll make it. He always does, she says simply. The glider slams into the ground on the far side of the destroyed bridge, with Batman protecting the child, letting his shoulder and side take the damage of the fall. As the crowd of deranged Jokers rush them, he pulls the girl tighter, telling her to hang on. Roar! He bellows as he dashes across the bridge, leaping, and behind him, the Robat explodes, killing everyone around it. Batman reaches out, managing to grab a hold of the fireman's ladder that the guards extended for him. A short time later, Damien sits in the infirmary as Barbara explains that the baby tested positive for a natural immunity to the Joker virus. But Damien stands, pulling back on his cowl as she asks the obvious question. Even if the baby works out, how long until the president pulls the plug on Gotham? All of this, everything that you've done, could be for nothing. At least I tried, Damien tells her. And the two begin to move through the remains of Arkham Asylum, with Barbara pointing out that they've defended a madhouse from mad men. You just described how I've always felt about being Batman, but I promise to protect Gotham City, down to the last stone, down to my last breath, Damien tells her. And outside the walls, the crazed Jokers continue to stab against the walls of Arkham, breaking their bones as they try to fight their way in. And inside of the Oval Office, the president cradles his head as his advisors tell him that he must make a decision about Gotham. Inside of the asylum, Damien stops just outside of the cell of Jackanapes, former gorilla henchman of the Joker. Well, you saw the baby's blood sample. Tell me what you think. Batman growls at the ape, and the gorilla peers over his instruments, listening and laughing as he sees the city burning. Damien steps into the room, slamming Jackanapes into the wall and lifting him up. He's sick of the gorilla's stupid jokes and demands to know if they can make the cure, and an evil smile spreads across the ape's face as he continues to laugh. There's a reason the child has no symptoms. The baby's a carrier. You brought a carrier among us. Jack and Abe's laughter echoes throughout the halls of Arkham as Batman rushes forward. He gets on the comms, ordering the guards to seal the infirmary. This isn't the first time that Damian has screwed up, that he has let the devil in, and flashes of memory fill his mind. Wayne Manor, the smiling man, the deal that he made to protect the city. Batman pushes through the crowd of survivors, ordering everyone to put their masks on and stay away from the infirmary. Inside, they'll find the bodies of the infected, holes blown into their chest. He steps through the door, shock filling his eyes. Barbara, the baby's a carrier. That's okay. The baby's not a problem anymore, she whispers back, turning in her wheelchair, a hideous grin already beginning to pull at the corners of her mouth as she holds the baby's body in her hands, its neck broken. The Joker got what he wanted in the end. He turned us all into monsters. She tells Damian not to let her out as he begins to cross the room, and she raises a shotgun to him. Smile! She gasps, firing, and the rounds chew through his stomach. In the White House, the advisor leans over the president's shoulder, telling him that he did the right thing, and that man is smiling. The same smile that Damian saw at Wayne Manor all those years ago. The bomber is now closing in on Gotham. Damian struggles to his feet, trying to stop his guts from spilling onto the floor, and Barbara is already gone, opening the gates to the deranged horde. The Arkham guards try to hold them back, but there are too many. Damian hits the button to let the prisoners out, and the fight for survival begins. He pulls out his eskrima sticks, leaping to fight against the horde, but they claw at him, pulling the flesh from his bones as he fights. Mother! He whispers as the bombs drop and the mushroom cloud envelops Gotham. I don't know how it happens, but I know that it happens, and I know how it ends. Batman tells his son in the current day. He explains that he had a dream that a future Batman would sell his soul to the devil and destroy Gotham. Your mother manipulated events to mold you into Batman, her agent. You can't be Robin. You can never be Batman. Right now, I can think of only one solution. He tells his son, and Damian turns, sadness in his eyes. Nobody knows the future, Father. Why would you do this to me? Don't make me go back to her. I want to stay with you, Damian tells his father. Suddenly, the radio squawks as Knight informs Batman that they've arrived at Target 1, that Leviathan has been there for days, and Batman's eyes go wide. Who gave you this target? No one knows this frequency! Get out! And with that, the building explodes. The Batmobile speeds through the rainy streets of Gotham as Batman speeds through the destroyed downtown building. The armored car screeching to a halt outside of the police tape. They've got hostages. They won't talk to anyone but you, Gordon informs the Dark Knight. As he jumps out into the streets, Batman strides past him as the robots descend from the sky. Trust no one, Jim. Leviathan is everywhere. Batman growls, and the robots move forward, ripping apart the steel doors that are blocking the entrance. Batman, what the hell is going on in this town? Gordon asks, and Batman barely slows down. It's a family affair, and Gotham is caught in the crossfire. Keep your men out of harm's way until I give the all clear, Batman tells him. Inside, the robot's chest light shines upon the mural on the floor. Let's talk. Observe the Zen parable of the goat herd, the stages of understanding. Talia calls to Batman over the speakers in the building. I came alone, Talia. I did what you asked. No more games. Batman calls to her, beginning to move through the building slowly, staying within the shadows. What is it that you want? If Damian comes back to you, will you end this? Batman asks quietly, but Talia doesn't answer him. Instead, she continues to ramble about the goat herd parable as Batman finds another mural. Can't we have a conversation like normal people? Oh, my dear detective, we're not normal people. We're special. Your soldiers are waiting for you on the mountaintop, she replies, and at the top of the building, Batwing tries desperately to pull the others from the debris. Batman, can you hear us? We need a doctor! He calls over the comms. Nearby, Knight pulls Beryl free, but the young girl sags in his arms, barely responding. And at the bottom of the stairwell, Batman finds another mural. Leave them out of this, Talia! He looks up, seeing several of Talia's soldiers aiming rifles down the stairwell at him. He moves fast, but the bullets begin to fly. He throws a bomb, filling the stairway with smoke as he moves through the soldiers rapidly. And in a matter of minutes, he reaches the top of the stairs with the soldiers all incapacitated. Talia marveling at how quickly Batman moved. Back in the Batcave, the Robins old and new continue to argue when suddenly the Bat computer flashes with the symbol of Leviathan. Damian turns at the sound of his mother's voice and they can all hear Batman's conversation with her. Batman enters the next room, finding mannequins with tablets strapped to them, showing the faces of Leviathan agents. These are all the people that we've replaced. Citizens of Gotham, citizens of Leviathan, awaiting a single word from me, Bruce! She informs him and Batman keeps moving. I can smell your perfume. Wherever you are now, you were here. He tells her. In the next room, he finds a table set for tea. Begins to smell the gas in the room, and he suddenly turns, moving through the room of mannequins as everything begins to explode. Run, Batman! Run, my detective! She shouts back at him. Batman leaps through the window, grabbing the fire escape, swinging back to the building, and outside, the Man-Bat commandos begin to circle around him. But the Robats are there, fighting against the mutants. Batman fires a grappling hook, pulling himself up, leaping through another window, where he crashes through the glass, kicking into the group of soldiers that are awaiting him. He moves through them quickly, disabling and tying them all up. You're doing so well, so close now, but here's how it will be. She calls out to him. Batman gets to the elevator as the doors close, and Talia explains that Otto Netz, Ouroboros, will replace all known energy throughout the planet. The global economy will shift. The 21st century will belong to no one. Gotham will commit suicide. The US economy will stagger. I don't want the boy. Do you? Talia asks. The door opens to reveal Talia standing before a view screen. Batman moves fast, but it's just another mannequin. Choose. Choose one or save the other. Show him, show me what's more important to you. Gotham or Damian, whichever you choose, the other will die. Decide, your city or your son! Talia demands of Batman. He steps through another door, finding the hostages tied together on the stairs. And before he can free them, Talia's bodyguard hefts a large boulder that they seem to be tied to. He throws it down the stairs with a laugh. Don't do this! Batman shouts, and at the top of the building, Knight continues to try and save Beryl. He starts giving her mouth-to-mouth, and he reaches for his taser, shocking her heart. That's my girl, he says with a smile as her hand tightens around him. Cyril! She suddenly shouts as the bodyguard appears over his shoulder, and with massive strength, the muscular goon lifts the Knight into the air by his throat. Don't let them win, Beryl! Knight gasps, the girl struggling to her feet, aiming her slingshot. She lets loose as the sound of Knight's neck cracking fills the room. The round hits the bodyguard in the eye, cracking his visor, and he screams in pain as he swings the Knight's body around. Suddenly, Batman is there, hitting the thug in the spine before chopping him in the throat. But the monster turns quickly, grabbing Batman, slamming him into the ground. Damian isn't the one who destroys Gotham. The third Batman in your nightmare? I made him! Talia calls to her beloved. Beryl tries to stop the monster by slamming a brick on his back, but he doesn't even flinch, and he lifts Batman over his head, preparing to throw him off of the building. The glass shatters as Batman plummets to the pavement below, raindrops in the sky as Gordon looks up. Batman? He whispers, and a motorcycle screeches to a halt nearby, with Wingman and Red Robin on the back. They got him! We're too late! They shout, but before Batman can hit the ground itself, a Man-Bat commando swoops in, snatching him out of the sky. Alright, now we've got a problem. Nightwing gasps, and Nightwing turns, ordering Wingman to grab the Batmobile and reconvene with the other agents of Batman Incorporated, while Red Robin continues to follow the homing signal on Batman's utility belt. He turns back to help Gordon figure out what just happened in the building after Batman went inside. Meanwhile, over in Russia, Trachtir and Spydra have discovered the bloody remains of a whale carcass, its womb shattered outward, and they report to Batwing, who orders them to retreat. This is our home, Trachtir says. Spydra fights Trachtir, informing him as he looks up at the incoming Man-Bat commandos working for Leviathan. Meanwhile, over in the Batcave, Damian continues to monitor the reports, beginning to put together Talia's plan. Back over in the building, Gordon begins to question Batwing as Nightwing tries to comfort the distraught Squire, who just lost Knight. I wasn't there. I wasn't there for him. Cyril's dead, and it's all my fault, she sobs into Nightwing's shoulder. The pouring rain mixing with her tears. Nightwing finally walks over to Gordon, finally informing him that the leader of Leviathan was Talia al Ghul. Gotham's in her sights. She pulled the trigger. He explains, and Gordon nods, shouting to one of his rookies to get back up to the scene. Meanwhile, over in the Batcave, Alfred walks down the long stairwell, noting that Damian has been awake all night. None of this would have happened if we'd been together as Batman and Robin, Damian mutters as he continues to look over the agent reports. Your mother is not one to be trifled with, it would seem, Master Damian. He won't bargain with lives and is certain that you can take care of yourself, young sir. Alfred tells his young charge with a slight smile. Damian nods, explaining to Alfred that he's done the research, that he knows that Bruce believes that he will grow up and destroy the world. Well, he's wrong. Mother has already appointed her successor to do that. Observe, Pennyworth! Damian tells him as he points at the reports, and he explains that Talia had already had another baby, created in an artificial womb. The child was hatched from the carcass of a dead whale fully grown. The monster burst out of the whale's womb and cut the umbilical cord with his teeth. He was tested and then trained by killing designer super people. He spoke to me. He told me that I'd know him when the time came. He's me. Damian finishes. Meanwhile, Jason Todd arrives at Batcave East, calling over the radio for backup. He turns aware that the Hood is skulking in the shadows. Save the skulking menace of the bad guys. Rendezvous in 15 minutes, Jason tells his teammate. But Hood pulls out his taser, shocking Jason. Batman Incorporated is all over, old boy. My first loyalty is to Spiral, Hood whispers. At one of their other base of operations, Talia opens up her safe, pulling out the kill switch to Ouroboros. She smiles at the heretic, who holds up Batman's utility belt, asking what he should do with it. A booby trap. Offer it to Callie the Destroyer, and bring the safe along. It's exactly the right size for our purpose, she says, motioning to the statue of Callie that guards the safe. Nearby, Red Wing leaps into the night air, gliding forward, landing on one of the windows. He follows the signal inside, his flashlight shining over the room of antiques. The light shines after the statue of Callie, the bat belt draped over her shoulders. Uh-oh, Red Wing whispers, the explosion ripping the apartment apart, forcing Red Robin to leap away. The fire licks at his wings, burning them up. Meanwhile, back at the building, Nightwing hits the comms again. Red Robin? I lost contact. He whispers to himself, and one of the rookies walks over, telling Gordon that he needs to talk to the group of kids that have already begun to get off the bus that pulled up. Damian looks up, knowing that it's about to begin the end game. Red Wing hits the pavement, yelling into his comms that everyone needs to get to Wayne Tower. Gordon looks up, ordering the kids to get back on the bus, and they all begin to pour out with weapons. Leviathan, 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 chanting from their lips. They wouldn't use kids. We can't shoot kids! Gordon gasps as he looks at Nightwing, the kids rushing forward, murder in their eyes. Meanwhile, back at Wayne Tower, Ellie fights the wind, finally reaching the lobby. She walks in with Arnold the security guard greeting her before finally figuring out what is wrong with his radio. Suddenly, the new guy turns, drawing his pistol, shooting Arnold in the chest. Leviathan rises! He shouts. Ellie runs, diving behind the security desk. As the Leviathan agent begins to search for her, he is interrupted as the doors burst inward with Talia and the heretic flanked by Leviathan soldiers. The agent falls in line as Talia looks at her men. The building belongs to Leviathan. Defend it with your lives, she commands before walking away, and using the distraction, Ellie slips away. Batman finally awakens. He's chained down in the safe. Talia radios him, asking if he is finally taking her seriously. She explains that everything that she has done was to test his limits, to learn exactly how long it would take him to break free of her ridiculous trap. She continues to monologue, nodding to the heretic to throw the safe into the pool that they stand over, the heavy object beginning to sink. In the Batcave, Damian slams his fist against the computer. I can't watch this happen! Grayson told me that he constantly disobeyed my father when he was Robin. He told me that you helped him, Pennyworth, Damian says, looking at the butler. And Damian explains that only he can stop this from happening. Only he can stop his brother and his mother. All of this is why Batman needs Robin. I want him to know that he was wrong about me, Damian explains, and Alfred nods, agreeing that Bruce has been wrong on several occasions. He holds up the Robin suit. I'll tell him that you overpowered me, sir, Alfred says with a smile, and changing, Damian tells Alfred to take care of the animals as he walks over to the Batcave locks. He clears his throat, doing a perfect imitation of Bruce's voice. Opening them, he finds a suit of armor designed for him. And out on the streets, Nightwing is trying to protect himself as the wave of Leviathan soldiers overwhelms him, the Hood dropping Jason before his true leader, and Redwing arrives at Wayne Tower, with Robin rocketing into the air, prepared to end this. He looks through the night vision as he rockets towards the city, and below him he can see Nightwing and the police trying to fight against the Leviathan mob that is threatening to overwhelm them. "What would you have me do, Grayson?" he asks, rocketing over them, launching the smoke bombs and tear gas to disperse them. Nightwing looks up in shock before realizing where Robin is headed. "I've got to leave your guys here to mop up, Commissioner," Nightwing tells Gordon, and Robin continues to fly, finding the Man-Bat commandos circling Wayne Tower as he begins to pick up the radio transmission of Talia speaking to Bruce. From inside of the safe, Batman has already slipped through the chains. He pulls free a lockpick, managing to drop it into his backhand. He quickly begins to pick through the locks that hold him, with Talia continuing to speak of Batman's flaws and all about her father. "I am not your father, Talia!" Batman snarls, but back in the lobby, Red Robin slips through the front door to find everything seeming normal. "Everything okay?" he asks, and the front desk woman smiles at him, and a janitor and a guard stand nearby. "Sure, can I help you? Did the clubs just get out?" she says with a smile. Red Robin introduces himself as an agent of Batman Incorporated and informs them that they might be in danger, when suddenly the janitor is behind Red Robin, raising his broom to smash against his head. "Look out!" Ellie shouts, but Red Robin is already moving. Ducking under the broom, he throws his discs, knocking everyone out. He then twists, kicking the janitor in the face, and the guard pulls his pistol, but Ellie clunks him in the head with a fire extinguisher. "Thanks, you should get out of here. There's probably more." Red Robin begins, but the bullets begin to rip through the room as Robin grabs Ellie, dodging behind a display tank that sits in the lobby. "Probably more of them is what I was going to say." Robin tells her as they both begin to take cover, and he orders her to get into the tank as he launches his grappling gun and begins to swing across the room. "Let me handle this," he yells as he twists, kicking out one of the giant quarters on display. It begins to roll across the room, smashing into the balcony with all of the guards, but the display that holds his grappling hook fails, trapping Red Robin beneath the debris. The soldiers move forward, readying their weapons, but a screeching noise can be heard, and the window suddenly shatters inward as Robin flies through the front glass. As the brainwashed children rush after Robin, raising their makeshift weapons to attack him, Robin twists, turning and kicking them before leaping into the mob. The guards move forward as the mob begins to rip the armor off of him, but he hits them with an electrical shock that throws the mob away. The mob then falls down, stunned. But that's when the bullets suddenly begin to fill the air, a motorcycle leaping through the front window as Nightwing dives through the air, pulling Robin to safety. "What would you do without me?" Nightwing asks with a smile as they take cover behind the security desk, bullets beginning to pour into it, chipping away at the concrete. "You're supposed to be at home, Damian! He'll kill Alfie for letting you loose!" Nightwing shouts calmly. "Pennyworth is blameless. Father seriously underestimated the situation, Grayson. I'm very pleased you're here, as a matter of fact." Damian tells his former partner, and Nightwing nods, pulling out a few smoke pellets as he points out that Damian flew into a war zone. "Where I belong! She is still my mother, and maybe I can reach her," Damian says, and the guards begin to creep around them as Damian turns to Grayson, believing that they can end this. "Are you with me, Nightwing? Odds are completely against us," Damian asks him. "When did we ever let something like that get in our way?" Nightwing asks, still smiling at his former Robin, a solemn look coming over Robin's face. "So far, I'd say you've been my favorite partner. We were the best, Richard, no matter what anyone thinks. Ready?" Damian tells him. "Hey, we can't help but be great." Nightwing nods as he tosses the smoke pellets over his shoulder into the crowd of guards. The pellets bounce along the ground as Nightwing and Robin leap over the desk, Dick Grayson and Damian together again. "We should do this more often," Nightwing notes as they push through the smoke. "That's what I said!" Damian agrees, and they move into the swirling darkness. Feet and fists fly as the guards begin to get knocked away. Poof! Pow! Biff! Bam! Sock! The smoke continues to billow into the room as the elevator doors open up, revealing the heretic and more guards. Nightwing and Robin swirl out of the smoke, double punching him in the face. His head tilts back, but Heretic doesn't move. "That worked out," Nightwing whispers as he rubs his knuckles. "Robin, get out of here," he commands, and with lightning speed, the Heretic lashes out, grabbing Nightwing by the throat, lifting him into the air. "Leave him alone! Look at me!" Robin shouts as his fists pound against the soldier's thick body. The Heretic looking at the boy, tossing Nightwing away. "Touch him again and I'll kill you!" Robin snarls at the mountain of a man, and through the smoke, Ellie sneaks forward, reaching for the Ouroboros trigger that Heretic has dropped. Robin looking at the warrior. "Take me to my mother. It's me she wants. I know you." he orders. The guards all turn their weapons on the young boy, but the heretic raises his hand. No, my brother, my twin, my rival. Now you will know me. Heretic rumbles and he reaches for a sword from another of the displays. With uncanny speed, he slashes at Robin, but Damien is fast. He leaps above it, grabbing a fallen spear, preparing himself. He deflects another blow from the sword, and then he blocks another as he calls out to his mother. He asks that she stop the fighting with his father. Heretic twists, kicking the young boy away, and as Damien is stunned, the heretic turns to Ellie. World bomb trigger is mine, give. He commands, and Damien struggles to his feet, picking up a crossbow. I promised my father that I wouldn't kill anyone ever again, he whispers before pulling the trigger. The bolt flies through the air, piercing the heretic's chest, and using his momentum, Damien leaps, kicking the arrow all the way through. He twists, latching onto the heretic's head, hammering onto his helmet. Fall! He shouts as he peppers the monster with more blows, arrows suddenly filling the air, piercing Damien's limbs. The heretic grabs him, slamming the boy's back over his knee. Break! He shouts. Damien snaps off the arrow, stabbing it into the monster's chest. Die! He shouts, bullets ripping through Damien next, tearing apart his small body. Blood begins to leak out of his mouth as he continues to fight. Cowards! He shouts to Leviathan. Heretic grabs him by the throat, lifting him into the air. Coward! Damien whispers, spitting blood into the monster's eye. Heretic throws him into the nearby wall, and then he retrieves his sword. Damien watches as the giant stalks over him, his body broken, blood pouring out of him. Call him off at once, Mother, Damien whispers. On the roof, Batman pulls himself out of the pool, Talia continuing to monologue to him, and he rushes towards the edge of the roof as she tells him that he's lost. Your move, detective, she finishes as Batman launches himself into the air, leaping onto the back of one of the Man-Bat commandos. They both fall through the air, plummeting towards the pavement below. In the lobby, the heretic drives the sword through Damien's chest, the boy's eyes widening in shock. In her command center, Talia suddenly swoons. One of the soldiers moving towards her, and she waves him away. It's nothing. A moment of weakness. That's all. She whispers, with tears in her eyes. Batman rushes into the lobby, cradling the body of his fallen son. Ellie stands nearby, the trigger of Ouroboros still clutched in her hands. He saved me. The sky was gray as the family carried the coffin to the plot of land. Bruce's face was bruised and smashed as he remembers the fight. Batman. It was me. I did it, the heretic called as Batman leaned over the body of his son, with the heretic ripping his robes off to reveal his bat armor, holding up the sword that pierced Damian Wayne's chest. I killed your son. I beat you once tonight, old man. You are weak and slow. The heretic shouts as he slashes downward with the sword, but Batman catches it, twisting. The blade clashes into the ground as he kicks it out, snapping the blade at the tip. He then hammers against the heretic with blow after blow, drawing blood from his helmet as he chops him in the eyes. Nightwing struggles to his feet, shocked by the body of his former partner. But the heretic is strong, and he lashes out at Batman, knocking him to the ground. He lifts a broken piece of debris up, preparing to drop it on the Dark Knight. I will never tire! I will break your back! The heretic shouts, but Nightwing suddenly leaps into the air, kicking the monster in the back. With a bellow of rage, he twists into the air, knocking the heretic off balance with several kicks and flips. And now we return to the cemetery. Dick turning to Bruce. Maybe you should say something, he says as the rain begins to pour down upon him. Bruce nods as he explains that Damien came into their lives like a lightning bolt. Though he was raised to be the leader of a criminal empire, he chose his own path. He chose to be Robin until the end. His death will be avenged. Bruce finishes. Meanwhile, over in London, Beryl has come to a decision. In her new costume, she stands before the Dark Ranger proposing a team-up. I'm with you, girl. He nods at her, and grimly she places the knight's helmet on her head. It's the Dark Ranger and Knight, she says with a nod. Bruce stands looking down at the freshly dug grave as the others walk away, Alfred appearing over his shoulder. Alfred, you allowed Damien to leave the cave against my instructions. Bruce whispers, the family friend stammering over his words, realizing the error of his ways. But Bruce cuts him off. Take a vacation, Alfred. We'll talk about this when it's over. Bruce tells him. Alfred tries to argue, but eventually turns and walks away, lightning flashing in the sky as Bruce looks up. This is between Talia and me. No one else, he growls. On the roof of Wayne Tower, the heretic steps forward, informing Talia that his wounds have healed. Beneath them, the city is still in chaos. Brainwashed members of the Leviathan continue to riot and destroy the city. Children attacking police officers. Mutants chasing down innocent bystanders on the streets. And Talia looks into the city. You killed Damien. You killed him before I gave the order, she says to the heretic without looking at him, and the monster nods, claiming that he made the decision on his own. In the future, you'll do as you're told. Remember what you are, she shouts at him. The night before, with the battle between Batman and the heretic throws Batman through the front of Wayne Tower, stepping out into the rain. Younger, smarter, faster, stronger, he calls as he lifts at Batman over his head, but an explosion hits them both, tossing the heretic aside. Yeah, run! Tim shouts from the tank in the lobby. That thing works? Ellie asks. If you know how, Tim tells her, bullets beginning to ricochet around them, and he orders her to get down. The tank turns, firing into the balcony, tossing the Leviathan troops aside. Outside, Batman struggles to his feet. Get Robin, he orders to the others. The following morning, the news reports that the mayor has received word from the criminal organization known as Leviathan, and they demand that the city ban the bat symbol from the streets of Gotham and outlaw Batman Incorporated. Batman is no longer welcome in Gotham City, the mayor tells the people. And in the cave, the members of Batman Incorporated watch the news conference. Nightwing nodding, holding out the trigger cube for Ouroboros that Ellie managed to get a hold of during the fight. As far as we can tell, it activates a ring of bombs that are around the planet, Nightwing tells the other agents. Dark Ranger searches around the cave, finally finding the trail that Jason left when he was abducted by the Hood. Nightwing nods, ordering the others to find Jason. Batman wants us to stay out of the fight. I say we owe it to our friends to finish it, Dick tells them. Meanwhile, Jason looks up, surrounded by the Skull Commandos in his kidnapped location. I suppose you're wondering why you're here, Mr. Wingman. What happens next is up to you, the mysterious headmistress tells him. Meanwhile, in the main Bat Cave, Bruce finishes dressing his wounds, popping some painkillers, and he pulls on his cowl and begins to walk out, stopping momentarily to pet Bat Cow. Bat Cow, he whispers with a smile, shaking his head. Moo, the animal replies, simply. Batman walks into the darkness of the cave, bellowing in rage, bats fluttering all around him. Meanwhile, Azrael bows before his suit of sorrows, a muttering prayer filling the small room. And suddenly he's not alone in the room as Batman stands before him. Michael Lane, I'm preparing for a war and I need your help. Azrael, Batman tells him. Michael stands explaining to Batman that he can't help, that his family was murdered by a pentagram, that he was always supposed to be a warrior for the devil. You fought back, Michael. You refused to accept the role that they tried to give you. That's why you're here. Hell has chosen me as its warrior. Until then, I try to do what good I can, he tells the Dark Knight, and Batman looks at one of the pictures that Michael has taped to the wall, of a dark figure standing over a burning city, and he explains the dreams that he saw, the vision of the future where his son destroyed the world. We're all your sons, Batman. Any one of us could end the world, or save it, Azrael explains as he turns back to his prayers, and Batman nods. My son is dead. The future I saw wasn't his after all, he whispers, turning back to the suit of sorrows on the wall. I intend to defeat the devil, Michael. For all of us, the suit of sorrows that you wore as Azrael protects its wearer from all harm. Am I right? Batman asks. Elsewhere in the city, Gotham is turned against its dark protector. Wanted signs of Batman are plastered around the city, and Gordon steps up onto the rooftop of the GCPD, finding several of his officers smashing the bat signal with axes. Meanwhile, over at Wayne Enterprises, Lucius explains to Bruce that the people are demanding that he say something. Renounce his role of backing Batman Incorporated. But Bruce shakes his head. Lucius leads him through Wayne Enterprises, showing him the shattered remains of the Robats. Recent field tests have proved their unreliability, and if Batman continues to use them as disposable pawns, he explains, motioning to a dumpster full of destroyed Robats. But Bruce shakes his head, explaining that Batman doesn't need the Robats anymore. What's behind the tarp? Bruce asks as he tosses aside one of the robot's heads and motions to the dark shape in the back of the lab. Lucius nods, explaining that it is a prototype exoskeleton that has wounded everyone who tested it. Bruce pulls off the tarp, admiring it. He's barely listening to Lucius as he asks about his son, letting the billionaire know that he's there if he ever wants to talk. Elsewhere in the city, Nightwing dangles a thug off a rooftop as Red Robin backs him up. I don't care what you people say. You're conscious all the way down and you feel it when your face hits the sidewalk. He growls. The thugs don't fight, explaining that everything with Leviathan is going down tonight. Red Robin looks at Nightwing, telling him that he doesn't believe that Batman can do this alone, and Nightwing nods as they tie the goon to a statue. He's hurt, backed into a corner with bad guys on all sides. And that's Batman at his most dangerous. Nightwing tells Red Robin as the two begin to leap across the rooftops. Suddenly, the radio crackles as Dark Ranger and Night call in, explaining that they have found Wingman's location. Inside the warehouse, the headmistress explains that Jason has been bugged by Talia this whole time. You're not with Talia, are you? Jason asks her. And the Skullgirls in the hood are standing behind him, with the headmistress stepping forward with a knife as one of the Skullgirls grabs Jason's head, forcing his mouth open. Quite the reverse, trust me. I'll do my best not to slip and cut out that nasty tongue of yours, she says, when suddenly the window shatters above and Dark Ranger and Knight land on the floor. The Skullgirls leaping forward but are put down quickly. They order Hood to stand down, but the hero quickly puts up his hands. I'm a spy. I know how it works. And you don't get it, either of you. We're all on the same side. Go on, ask the headmistress, Hood tells Jason, and Jason looks up at the two heroes nodding. He's right. I just realized who this is and what's actually going on. Listen to this woman. Elsewhere, the police kick open the door to Kirk Langstrom's office, demanding to know where Batman is, and Kirk is confused, explaining that he is working on an antidote for the Man-Bat formula. One of the officers then heads towards the windows, explaining that someone is going to hang for Batman, when suddenly a fist pushes through the curtains, smashing the cop in the nose, and Batman growls as the other cops rush forward, leaping out into the night. Inside Wayne Tower, Heretic continues to argue with Talia. When do I inherit? When will I know? Gotham is my kingdom. Why can't I do what I want? He shouts, but Talia doesn't even look at him. You're a child. You barely lived, she tells him offhandedly. I'm Batman. I want what's mine. He growls at her, raising his hands to his mother, and Talia whirls on him, a detonator in her hand. She explains that his spinal column is wired to explode, that she only need to press a button. Mother. Heretic begins, energy crackling through his body as she presses the button. Lady Talia, she tells him coldly. Damien disobeyed me. You lack that option. Do you understand? She asks as she lets go of the button, stepping out into the rainy night. In the cave, Batman is quietly sitting in his chair, holding up the needle, ejecting it into his neck. He growls as the change overtakes him, mutating his body. On the rooftop, a soldier steps forward, informing Lady Talia that the radar is picking up something coming in fast. She holds up her binoculars, gasping as she sees the giant winged shape. He wouldn't, she whispers, lightning crackling in the night as the Man-Batman barrels towards them, clad in exoskeleton armor. Why can't he admit defeat? Talia questions as Batman soars towards them in a cloud of bats. Why won't he stop? She asks as she raises her hand, ordering her men to fire. Batman raises his own hand, screeching in the language of the bats. The creatures of the night rush forward, swarming over the soldiers, the Man-Bat commandos. And as the bats bite into the Man-Bats, they begin to change back, falling out of the sky. The bats are carrying the antidote, she shouts. Batman swoops down, ripping the heretic from the rooftop and flying away. He drops him over the city, allowing the monster to slam into a rooftop water tower. He then lands on the rooftop, snarling at the heretic. Nothing human can defeat you. Look at me. You killed my son. I'll show you defeat. He yells at him, slamming his fist into the ground, sending an electrical current through the spilling water, shocking the heretic. He rushes forward, slamming his fist into the monster, but the heretic recovers quickly, lashing out. I'll beat your skull in, he bellows as he grabs Batman, blood spilling as the heretic's fist slams into Batman's face. But he twists, punching him in the gut, pushing the heretic away, and as the monster staggers back, Batman explains, my suit is made of refractive metal. And then he presses a button, disappearing before the heretic's eyes. I can still hear you. The heretic tells the Dark Knight, blows beginning to slam into the heretic's body, coming in from all angles. Good, you hear that? Batman questions as he continues to lash out at the monster. The blows knocking the heretic off of the rooftop, sending him plummeting into the rain. The heretic tries to activate his jetpack, but it fails as he slams into a passing blimp. Batman lands near him, once again becoming visible. The heretic stabs out at him, slamming his knife into the armor. Stupid old man! He growls. Everything's old when you're a child, programmed to kill instead of play, twisted and broken in the service of your mother. Batman shouts, but the heretic reaches out, grabbing one of Batman's armored wings, ripping it off. I do what I want, and I'll kill you, he bellows, twisting the wing, stabbing it into Batman's chest. He slams the Dark Knight into the ground, grabbing him by the throat, and he finally activates the jetpack, carrying them both into the air. Slamming into the side of a building, exploding through the window, they continue their battle, exploding at the other side and plummeting to the city below. A school bus breaking their fall as they crash into it. Meanwhile, Nightwing and Red Robin arrive outside of the warehouse, prepared to rush in to save their friends that haven't called in 10 minutes, when suddenly the doors open, revealing a squad of Skullgirls. Suddenly, the girls part and Wingman steps out. Guys, I can explain, he says with a smile. Oh, this better be good. Talia's about to pull the plug on the city, Nightwing tells Jason, who motions them inside, telling Hood to cue his briefing. The hero's spy steps forward, asking the Bat family if they actually thought that the international intelligence community would allow Bruce Wayne and Batman to launch a private global army. The headmistress steps out of the shadows. There's still time to save the city, but I suggest you leave the international supercriminals to the experts, she tells them, explaining that this is bigger than Batman. It'll be dealt with a higher power, but right now we need Batman Incorporated to deal with the Ouroboros ring, she tells them with a smile. And as the heroes prepare, Nightwing turns back to the mysterious, shadowy woman. I know you, don't I? That voice. How you've grown. But things never change. Batman needs you. Meanwhile, on the school bus, Batman continues to slam his fist into the heretic, ignoring the brainwashed children that stare at them in shock. Heretic then flies through the front windshield of the bus, slamming hard into the pavement. Blood is dripping from his wounds, mingling with the still falling rain. Why does it hurt? It's not supposed to hurt! He gasps, when suddenly the jetpacks bring Nightwing and Night in fast. Nightwing hits the ground running, slamming hard into the heretic, knocking him away. This is for my friend! He yells at him, but both Night and Nightwing begin to attack, hitting Heretic in the sides of the head with their escrima sticks. Heretic falls as Batman stalks over to the group. I thought I told you to stay out of this. I ignored you, like every other time, Nightwing tells his mentor. Batman reaches down, pulling the heretic up, demanding that he look at him. You killed my son! But as he looks into the face of the heretic for the first time, the monster's helmet shattered by the relentless attack. Your son? He mutters, and Batman turns away, letting the villain fall. God, no. Sons are born to die in war. The face of Damian tells him from the monster as Batman realizes how close to Damian this clone is. But Night isn't done. Nightwing grabs her, holding the hero back as she is yelling at him in rage, demanding to kill the monster. He has nowhere to go. It's over, Batman tells them, and the heretic suddenly gets to his feet, rushing towards the entrance of Wayne Tower. But lightning strikes the large W at the top, sending it crashing to the streets, blocking the entryway before Night can follow. A short time later, Heretic is standing on the rooftop, demanding to know why Batman said that Talia was using him. But the woman turns, her sword flashing quickly, cutting the head off of Heretic's body. I sow and reap as I choose. I warned you, she whispers, walking across the roof, boarding her waiting helicopter. Give the order. Kill the city. I'll do the rest, she commands as she presses the button on her detonator. The city suddenly going dark. There's a brief moment of peace in the rain. But then that peace is shattered as Wayne Tower suddenly explodes in a flash of light. The helicopter travels the city, landing on the grounds of Wayne Manor. Talia slips inside, clad in a bat cowl and cape. Armed with her twin swords, she moves through the manor, finding the secret entrance to the Batcave. Exactly where I want you. You and I, at last, she calls to Batman as she walks down the stairs. Batman standing before her, bathed in the light of the Bat computer. To the death, my detective! Lightning crashes as the rain begins to pour down upon them. Gordon looks up, yelling that Bruce Wayne is under arrest. The city is in turmoil. The sun has finally come up over this horrendous night. And in the GCPD, Gordon walks into the interrogation room, placing a cup of coffee before Bruce Wayne. He looks at the state of Wayne's face, covered in bruises and bandages, and Bruce smiles, admitting that it's from boredom and dangerous sports. "What can I tell you, Jim?" Bruce asks, and Gordon looks at him, pointing out that they blew up Wayne Tower, brainwashed children, and they've been terrorizing the city streets. "Tell me how it got to this," he asks the billionaire, and sadness fills Wayne's eyes. "An old flame set the town on fire. We had a son, bad seed, bad blood. I did my best to save the boy from his mother's influence, and I failed. I triggered a kind of war," Bruce explains to the police commissioner. "So you built an army of Batmen?" Jim asks, and as he looks at Wayne, he is shocked that Bruce would date the daughter of Ra's al Ghul. You see, the previous night is when this all came to its conclusion. As Talia walked down the steps of the Batcave, she dramatically tossed her cloak aside. "Here we are, the grand finale! A flamboyant enemy worthy of the Batman," she tells him. Batman looks at her in anger, asking, "Was this all to get back at me?" "It was over for Damian when you dragged him into your game of masks and capes," she tells him, tossing him a sword. Batman catches it, preparing himself. "This stopped being a game a long time ago," he yells back at her. They leap at each other, swords clashing, echoing throughout the cave. Meanwhile, at the interrogation room, after the events, Jim folds his hands, asking how long they've known each other. "Since the beginning, Jim," Bruce admits, remembering the friendly beat cop that helped a young boy with the tragedy in Crime Alley. Bruce nods, admitting that he tried to fight against something he barely knew. But back in the cave, Talia and Bruce pull each other close, kissing as the city tears itself apart outside. Riots continue in the streets as the Bat family moves throughout them. The Hood and the Skullgirls continue to fight against Leviathan. They're all trying to stop Ouroboros. Across the globe, Batman Incorporated is continuing its battle, and Talia pulls away. A final taste of the life that you have rejected. A fading memory of a life you will never know. She snaps at him, and as they circle each other, Talia explains that Leviathan has orders to leave the city if she doesn't return. "Kill me and save your city. Kill me, or I will kill you," she tells him. She taunts him with the death of Damian as their swords clash again and again. And Jim asks Bruce what happened to his son. What happened to Talia al Ghul? Batman and Talia's swords clash again, but the force of the blow shatters the blade this time. Bruce leans forward, and he tells Jim that he knows that he has finished, that Batman Incorporated is finished, that I was right to support him. We saved the world, Bruce explains. Blood oozes from Batman's wounds in the sword fight. Talia looking at him, explaining that she used a new poison on the blade. He has 10 minutes to live, and he nods. "Of course. I'm sorry I couldn't love you the way you wanted me to, Talia. You're right. I can't fight you. So what is it you really want?" he asks as the world begins to twist around him as the poison is taking effect. "You chose war. I gave you an unbeatable enemy. I did this all for you. You'll never understand. Beg me for the antidote," she tells him as he falls to his knees. Suddenly, the sound of a motorcycle approaches, and the wingman screeches to a halt in the Batcave. "Don't kill him! Don't kill him!" he shouts as he holds up the trigger cube for Ouroboros. "They gave me what you wanted, in exchange for Batman's life," he tells her. Batman struggles to lift his head. "Jason, no! I trusted you! Don't do this! Don't let her win!" Batman gasps, struggling through the poison, and Jason walks across the chamber, holding out the cube. "Give me the antidote, and the trigger is yours," he tells Talia. She nods, dropping the antidote on the body of Batman. She reaches out, taking the Ouroboros trigger from Jason, the thing that will end the entire planet, the bombs that are circling the world. "He owes you his life. I hope he lives long enough to thank you for it," she says smugly. She reaches down and hits the trigger, but nothing happens. And Jason, aka Wingman, aka Red Hood, smiles at her. "Our people disarmed your ring of death 5 minutes ago. I didn't come here alone, Talia. I came here because I owe you, and I'm telling you to run before the scary bad people get here." As Batman gulps down the antidote, he lifts his head and he tells Talia that the Ouroboros energy is unstable, strength returning to his body as he gets to his feet. "My advice, never trust an unstable Nazi. You might think you own the world, but you'll never have Gotham." She shakes her head as she tells Bruce that she'll buy Wayne Industries and wipe him from existence, that he should have killed her when he had the chance. But a voice makes them all look up in shock. You know as well as I do, Batman doesn't kill, the headmistress says as she aims her pistol, shooting Talia in the skull. Kathy Kane, the original Batwoman, steps out of the shadows, her pistol smoking as she smiles at Batman, explaining that Spiral has been closing in on Talia al Ghul for some time. Batman cradles his former love's body, shocked to see Kathy, but she smiles as she picks up the trigger. Stick to what you do best, and don't try to find me. I don't exist, Kathy tells him. Jim leans over the table in the interrogation room, commenting that no one has seen Batman in days. Batman died, Jim. From what I heard, Batman met his match, Bruce tells him. An officer walks in and hands Jim a piece of paper. Well, a mysterious woman cleared your bail, Jim tells Bruce as he scans the paper, telling him that the government shut down the investigation against Bruce Wayne. I'm not sure what happened, but you might be the luckiest man on Earth, Bruce, Jim tells his friend. Before the billionaire can get up to leave, though, Jim admits that the city needs Batman, now more than ever. And Bruce nods, admitting that he needs to rebuild his company. You'll have to ask Batman about that, he says as he stands. I hope I get a chance. If he's still out there, he knows where I am, and if I ever need to call him, I'd like to think that he'll get the message, Jim says with a smile as he shows his secret Batman pin. Alfred waits outside the police station with the door to Bruce's limo open. I canceled my vacation, sir. There's something rather unusual that I think you need to see. Alfred tells him, and they drive to the cemetery, where they discover the graves of his parents dug up and the bodies removed. Without a word, Bruce returns to the manor, to the cave, and once again, Batman prowls the night, for Batman never dies.
And there you have it. You have Batman Incorporated right here at the Comicstorian channel. Now, what do you think of the concept of this? And if you did like it, now that you know that Robin died, we are considering doing the follow-up to this. Now, the reason Batman Incorporated ends with the death of Robin is that is what Grant Morrison, the creator of Robin, wanted for the character. But of course, it's DC, and the next writer came in and revived him. But how did he? Let me know in the comments down below if you want the continuation, and don't forget to hit that subscribe button and smash that like button, and we'll see you next time right here at Comicstorian.